The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the gateway to the West, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, Sean sits down with Lance Myxter to talk about the Downfall Kickstarter. Then the Dukes review Greater Than Games' Spirit Island. Next, the Dukes look back on their reviews of Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu and Potion Explosion in their Dukes Quadruple Take. And finally, they talk about the lowest rated game that they love. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 160, which we're calling I'll Drink to That, but Isle spelled like I-S-L-E, like an island, which makes sense.
It makes sense because I've had a few drinks.
Boy, yeah, we're always worried about 1.5 beer Alex, but I think we're on 2.5 beer Alex right now. But anyway, before we get too sidetracked, we named that episode courtesy Neil Hoffman. He named that because we're talking about Spirit Island. We're also talking about drinking potions, and it makes a lot of sense. So congrats to Neil for naming the episode. And if you don't know, over on Board Game Geek, we're guild number 2008. Every other week, I caught myself this time, Alex.
Nice job.
Every other week, we put up a Dukes on Deck, where you can go jump in conversation about our upcoming episode where we tease the games we're going to discuss, and you can help name the episode. And if you want to listen for the rest of the runners-up for naming episode 160, listen on till the end of the show. We'll have them for you there. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Jake from Draft Mechanics in town, and that means beers, and I've had a couple of them.
Well, I should say, Alex, that I am finishing up my one beer, and then I'm going to switch over to a soda, but it is thematic. It's a thematic beer. It's from one of my favorite brewers, Stone Brewery, and it's called Vengeful Spirit IPA, which is perfect.
Okay.
Isn't that perfect?
Oh, no. It matches very well. I'm having currently a Zwickel from Urban Chestnut, based here in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri.
Because all the chestnuts in Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu.
No.
Yeah. No.
What?
Anyway,
I didn't say it was thematic. You said yours is thematic.
It's a joke. I'll tell you about them later. Jeez. So, forget it. I'm not going to tell you about my beer. It's delicious, though. Anyway, a couple bits of show business before we move on. If you don't know, we have a Patreon campaign. It's over at patreon.com/Dukes of Dice. And if you want to go over and help out the show with a little financial support, we'd really appreciate that. We have a lot of amazing Patreon patrons that help us out over there. And just want to give a quick shout out to a brand new Knight of the Duchy, Lynn Chalfoun. Sorry, Lynn, if I'm saying that incorrectly, but thank you so much for your support. You got some interesting news earlier today, Alex.
I officially have flights to Vegas. Woo! I'm going to be there at the Unrivaled tournament, presumably with you and maybe Raquel.
Yes, I haven't gotten my flight yet, so I better hop on getting that flight for Raquel.
They knew the right Duke to bring. They just wanted the 15%. They didn't need the 85%.
Okay. We'll go with that. But if you don't know what the Unrivaled tournament is, these are the finals that are running the 28th and 29th in Las Vegas at Bally's, right? It's at Bally's. And there's a bunch of tournaments for a bunch of different board games, and we're there as kind of special guests. The whole thing is being hosted by Will Wheaton. And if you want to watch the finals live and maybe get a peek of the Dukes, you can go over to umba.tv and check that out. So we're very excited. And by the way, there's ways to there's a contest you can enter, and I'll put links in the show notes so they can actually fly you out. And I think that's ending pretty soon. But also, if you're in the Vegas area, you can come buy tickets and come hang out with us. There's a GameWorks party on Friday night, and then the finals are on Saturday. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm very excited, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to report back.
Sean, it's a costume party. What costume are you going to be wearing? I
wanted to do Rick and Morty. I wanted Chewie to dress up as Morty. She's not going to be there, and I dress up as Rick, which is somewhat fitting.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. I'd be a good Rick.
You are definitely a good Rick. There's no doubt about that.
I'm only like 20% of his level of sociopathy, but anyway.
That's a generous number to yourself, good sir.
What about you?
Very generous.
Are you going to dress up?
So I'm pretty bad with costumes. I still have a Legends of the Hidden Temple costume from a couple years back, Candy.
What?
And I think I may have a referee's costume kind of around, but I don't know. If it's a big deal party, I might need to step up my game. And I've never cosplayed, and this probably isn't the first time to try that. So to answer your question, no, I have no idea.
Okay. I guess I could be Fat Captain Hammer. Did you ever see my Captain Hammer when I was thin? When I was thin and muscular?
I didn't. Oh, no.
I was an excellent Captain Hammer.
So never? Wait, you had a never?
What?
You had a never Captain Hammer?
No, what are you talking about? I just saw a Facebook memory from 5 years ago, and I was like, oh, wow, look at that sexy guy.
Oh, back when you were playing kickball.
Yeah.
It was kickball times. Yeah, okay.
Anyway. Wow, that was mean.
Alternate
You're
reality,
mean.
Sean.
Jeez.
Sorry.
Yikes.
I'm having a good time tonight.
Oh,
are you having a good time, Sean?
Ask me later. We'll see. So
oh boy.
The last bit of news, we are reviewing Charterstone from Stonemaier Games. We cannot tell you anything about it right now. We may or may not be playing games of it. Not as we speak.
We can say that.
Okay,
no, we can say that.
Right now, there's a review embargo that's up until October 18th. If you want to get a little sneak peek of it, you can go over to YouTube and check out Rodney Smith's Watch It Played how-to video. There's a little bit of light spoilers, but I think it's fine. But anyway, in the off week, that rules embargo is going to lift, and so you're going to see a couple things from the Dukes of Dice. You're going to see a Wham review over at dukesofdice.com.
Wham!
And then you're also going to see some videos from me. Basically, I'm going to kind of do some first impressions without spoilers, and then some first impressions with spoilers. That's the plan anyway. And then the following week, we'll be doing an episode with our buddy Michael Canavan, who is a Patreon supporter. And in the middle of that, he'll kind of duck out, and we're going to do our full review of Charterstone, but without spoilers.
As best we can.
Yeah,
It's tricky to do with a legacy game anyway.
Yeah, we've got a little practice with Pandemic Legacy. But anyway, so be sure to check out dukesofdice.com on the 18th and the Dukes YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Dukes of Dice. All right, Alex, that does it for show business. Let's talk about games that we can actually discuss without the Stonemaier SWAT team coming in and raiding us.
Yes. Speaking of Jamie Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games, I got in a play of the Unlock series. Sean, have you played the Unlock series yet?
No, it's another one of the escape rooms in a box.
That is correct.
Yeah, I have not played the series yet.
This is a Space Cowboys title, and we played specifically in the Unlock series Squeek and Sausage, which is their medium-rated difficulty of that. Jamie had that on his, he doesn't call it Shelf of Shame, I don't remember what he calls it, but he had it on his shelf of really want to play. We got this in.
Knowing Jamie, it's probably just called his shelf of opportunities.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that sounds about right. So we got in a play of Squeak and Sausage, and I got to tell you, Sean, of all of the escape room games I've played, it certainly wasn't the most difficult, but it may have been the most enjoyable one I've played. It was right in that sweet spot of tricky enough where the puzzles were engaging and solid, and you felt like you were coming to some real breakthroughs. They weren't unfair. And yet, at the same time, it had this beautiful blend, or not blend, it had this beautiful feature, I should say, of it's non-destructive.
Oh.
It's an escape room game that, although I wouldn't play it again because I've already played it through once and know everything about it, it's something you could resell or give to someone else to play or play with a different group as long as you weren't in it, and it would work just fine. And I think that's a smart way to go. It has that same price point, that $15 MSRP that you tend to see with these escape room games, and yet it's non-destructive. And so it maintains its value after a play, which I think is a really smart decision by the designers of this. It felt to me, Sean, and I've never actually played one of these, but I've seen enough videos and have enough familiarity, kind of like the Monkey Island games, where you're sort of combining things and trying to solve puzzles in an interesting way, and even failure tends to be pretty funny. When you fail in this game, you take a big penalty, but it's done in such a way where it's flavor and theme that's hilarious in a way. And I should say the Unlock series handled that all pretty well. It wasn't that difficult of a game in that we were able to finish it with about 17 minutes on the clock, keeping in mind that we had about 7 minutes worth of penalties. So on the hour-long clock, we got done in a reasonable pace, but it's a pretty solid team we had going, even though it was just 3 of us. I like that it accommodated that smaller player count well. I like that it was non-destructive. I like that it was meaty enough without being unfair. And I think that combination of things worked beautifully. So Yeah, I really dug Unlock, and I'm excited to play a harder version of it.
And what's the Squeek and Sausage theme about?
It's an evil mad scientist who's locked you in a room, and the other pieces of it have to do with mechanics of the game that I don't want to get into.
Okay, I'm very confused, but okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So that's Unlock Squeek and Sausage, named, I don't know why, but that's fine. So this last weekend, we had a little gaming retreat up at the Duchy Mountain Retreat with our buddy Nick, who has a cabin.
Mountain Con.
Yeah, Mountain Con, an unofficial Mountain Con. And there were about 12 to 15 of us throughout the weekend. I came up Friday night with Mariah, in theory to help set up, but it mostly just turned into us playing games. But I was so exhausted, I only played one game and then I went to bed. And then Mariah stayed up and played a bunch more. The next day, we had our buddy Len made this delicious pork butt. It was delicious. We also got some other barbecue from Rudy's. There was a whole bunch of stuff, snacks, drinks. It was fantastic. It was a fantastic time. Nick and Marissa did a bang-up job of hosting, and it was a good time all around. So there was not much gameplay, though, for old Sean here, which was kind of unfortunate. During the day on Saturday, Raquel brought up Chewy, who was not feeling well. And so since Raquel usually takes over Chewy duty in that type of situation, I said, hey, the good guy that I am, where's my medal, by the way? I'm waiting for the medal. I took care of Chewy Saturday night and kind of Sunday morning so that she could actually get some games in. So, yeah, waiting for the applause. Waiting for the applause.
Not coming, but congrats, I guess.
Okay.
Good job.
Anyway, so I did get to play a couple games. We played Friday night a game called Cosmic Kaboom. This is from Minion Games, designed by Matt Loomis. And this is a spaceship-themed dexterity flicking game, not unlike Flip Ships. But I'm not going to bury the lead here. Flip Ships is way better.
Okay.
This game was fine. I think we played on too big of a table. It recommends a 3x4, and we were kind of playing on a 3x5. It's a cool concept though. So you're flicking your ship. It's a disc on a table type flick. It's not the end over end flip in Flip Ships, but you're flicking your little fighter jet or whatever. And there are these different planets of different colors, 3 of each, and there's a resource on one of the 3 of a color. And so you have to bounce off that planet to collect that resource. And then once you do, then the next sequentially numbered planet of that color now has that resource for everyone else to get. Once you have 4 different colored resources, you return to base, and then your next turn, you have this Cosmic Kaboom, which is this 3-inch cardboard chit that you flip, and you're trying to destroy planets. And there's some points based on how many planets you destroy, how many you have left out there. There was some interesting stuff, because you could actually, it's kind of like pool, in that as you continue to make shots, you can keep going. So if you could set it up right so that you can just grab one, get a free turn, grab the next, get a free turn, grab the next, it's pretty cool. And there are different ship abilities that you all start the game with. And then as you have planets of yours destroyed, you get to draw extra ones for some other special abilities. So it was good. I enjoyed it. I would want to try it again on a smaller table, what it was designed for. But I'm not going to rush out to get it. I mean, Flip Ships is, as far as I'm concerned, and I think even, this was Len's game, by the way, I think he agreed that Flip Ships is just a better game. Flip Ships is amazing. This was solid. This was a solid game. I definitely played again under the right circumstances.
Fair enough.
That is Cosmic Kaboom.
Oh, it's a catchy name, but King Klenko reigns supreme, apparently. Anyway. Transitioning. Yep, sorry. We're officially at 2.5 drink, Alex.
Oh, boy.
So you get what you get. Next up, I played some games over at my friend Josh's house. And by friend, I mean work friend and also friend, Josh Lobkowitz. And played several games, including The Rose King, the King of Roses. A game about being the King of Roses. Sean, you've played this one before, correct?
I owned it, I played it, I enjoyed it, but I got rid of it.
Okay, well, that says a lot about it.
Sure does.
This is a 2-player, pretty much abstract game where you are battling for area control of a kingdom. And it's scoring in such a way where if you have 2 contiguous territories, that's 4 points, or something along those lines. If you have 3, 4, 5, 6, the more you have, the much, 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 much better you do in terms of your area control as far as the game goes. So in the Rose King, you have a number of action cards in front of you. On your turn, you're either drawing a new action card to place in front of you, or you're playing one of your actions to move the King of Roses to somewhere else on the board to lay down a space. And you also have a certain number of times you're able to flip spaces on a game. So when someone's laid down a space, you can, in theory, flip it to try and break up a certain large area that someone has. Played it. Enjoyed it decently enough. Apparently, this has a better online implementation than even the in-person implementation.
Oh, I could see that.
But it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. It was simple enough, and it suffered a little bit from a Seven Wonders Duel problem in that in a lot of times you felt forced, that it felt like you didn't really have a ton of options, and that's really the game. And if you like Seven Wonders Duel, and that's your kind of thing, where you enjoy boxing your opponent into a corner, then I think you're going to dig the Rose King. For me... yeah, I mean, obviously, you know where I stand on Seven Wonders Duel. I'm not a huge fan of this. Rose King, I liked a little better than that, but it just isn't a kind of mechanic that I tend to enjoy. I don't like that boxing and forcing your opponent. I like being able to do things yourself that are interesting.
Love it.
I think. So, yeah, not my deal, but got that one in, and it was a new play, and that's the Rose King. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, give that one a try.
And it's interesting because the reason I got rid of it is it's part of that Cosmos like 2-player line, that small box Cosmos game, and I just feel like I have a bunch of others. Whether it's I can't think of any right now, but I have a bunch of those of that weight, of that play length, that I'd rather pull out. But it has interesting design pedigree. It's Dirk Henn who designed Wallenstein and Shogun, which are both kind of a similar game, but I like those. So it's worth a look. It's worth a look, and it's cheap enough. It's like $15-$20, I think. So it's worth a look.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right. So speaking of designer Matt Lewis, who I talked about with Cosmic Kaboom, he has another game that I played called Seikatsu. This is published by IDW Games, and this is a 2 to 4 player abstract game, but really it should be played at exactly 3 players. And the reason is because of how you're situated around the board. It's a hexagonal board, and you are scoring, you're laying these tiles down this hexagon, and you are scoring points based on the lines originating from your 2 sides of the board. So all of these tiles have 2 things on them. They have a type of flowers surrounding the outside, and they have a type of bird. I think there's like 5 or 6 different flowers and 5 or 6 different types of birds. And so when I initially place a tile, if I'm placing it adjacent to matching colored flowers, I'm going to score some points. I score 1 point if there's 1 there. I score 2 points if it's adjacent to 2. And then at the end of the game, I'm looking down my rows, and the highest number of birds of one type in that row is going to score me points. So it's pretty interesting because you're pulling these tiles blind from a bag, and then you have then you place it. You have kind of the whole time for it to come back around to you to decide what you're going to do with it. So it's an interesting set of decisions because you have to decide, all right, am I going to place these flowers initially to score a bunch of points, but I'm giving my opponent now his third bird in a row for endgame scoring. And so it's a nice balance of that. I thought it was a fine abstract. I like my abstracts, I think, a little bit meatier. I think the production on this is fine. I think that the gameplay is good. I think it's a very good gateway abstract. It wasn't doing a lot for me, but I could certainly appreciate the elegance and the simplicity of it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It didn't do a lot for me. If I'm going to play an abstract, which isn't that often, I'm going to want a little more meat on the bones, so to speak. But I think you would like this a lot.
You're slamming Matt Loomis. You're just dragging his name through the mud this episode.
No. I think both games are good games. They're not for me. But seriously, I think they're both solid games.
Sean, at work, we talk oftentimes about a well-designed versus fun matrix, where well-designed is an x-axis and fun is a y-axis.
Okay.
It sounds like these are sort of well over on the well-designed for you, but not necessarily fun for you.
I would say Cosmic Kaboom is probably more fun than well-designed.
Okay, interesting.
Being able to pull off a bunch of combo shots was really cool. There was a cool factor to it.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
But anyway, that's Seikatsu, designed by Matt Loomis. Sorry, Matt, and IDW Games.
So the next game I'm going to talk about has a disclosure because it's a game that was published by Gray Fox Games, and I think we have maybe half a dozen copies still sitting around the warehouse, so keep that in mind. But the reason I'm talking about it is because it's the strangest ending to a board game I think I've had, Sean. This is Study in Emerald 2nd Edition, and Sean, I think we're still in dispute on this. Did I actually play Study in Emerald 1st Edition at some point?
I don't know that I'd call it playing it. But you certainly sat down at the table while we had it out and we were trying to execute the rules.
and unsuccessfully.
Well, there was some success, but you were just kind of grumpy the entire time and just
that sounds right.
made the actual gameplay kind of difficult.
Sounds like me.
No, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So Study in Emerald 2nd Edition is the revised version, which there's some debate online about, is the 2nd edition better, the 1st edition better? I can tell you just on play length alone, the 1st edition I think is 90 to 120 minutes. The 2nd edition is 30 to 60 minutes.
Oh,
and just
wow.
for my weight of game, 2nd Ed is going to be where it's at for me, period. This is based off of a short story by Neil Gaiman, called Study in Emerald, which is set in a future where Cthulhu and the old ones have taken over. They're already in charge.
Is it a future or is it a past?
It's a past. Never mind. Whatever. It's set in an alternate reality past where the old ones have taken over. Sherlock Holmes and the Restorationists are trying to get things back to the way they were, and Moriarty and the Loyalists are trying to keep things going the way they are with the old ones in charge. And you are secretly assigned teams in this game. And this is key to sort of the ending of this. So we were playing this 3 players. In a 3-player game, the most likely scenario is 2 of the 3 of you are on one team, the third of you is on a different team. So in our game, 2 of the 3 of us were on Restorationists, 1 of the 3 of us were on Loyalists. Now, the way this game works is you will score points, but some of the points you score may be you only get to keep them if you're a Loyalist player, or you only may get to keep them if you're a Restorationist player. So you can bluff with points. For instance, you can take an action that would normally only benefit a Loyalist player, even though you're a Restorationist player. So that's what I did. In my case, I killed an agent on the board, specifically Josh's agent on the board. Josh happened to be a fellow Restorationist player. I had points that indicated I was a Loyalist, even though I wasn't a Loyalist. Okay, does that all make sense, Sean, in some form or fashion?
It makes sense to me because I have read the rules for 1st edition, but who knows about our fair listeners out there?
Fantastic. Yeah, well, doing my best. What happened as a result of this game is, if a player's agents are wiped off of the board completely, aka they're beaten so much up on that they don't have any agent presence on the board, they reveal their identity. If it's a Loyalist, they add more agents back on the board. All good, game continues. If they're a Restorationist, the game ends immediately. What happened in our game was Josh got beaten up on so badly in this game as sort of a throwaway action by Matt, who we were playing with, that he got eliminated from the game, knocked out completely, got his agents wiped off the board, which is usually not a good thing because you need some degree of area control to do anything in that game. He got so badly beaten up on, though, that as a result of that, I lost points from taking an action that didn't benefit my side earlier in the game. It was a drag on me. I got knocked below him. So Josh got beaten up on so badly in that game, he won the game. It's the weirdest ending I've ever seen. A case where in a 3-player game, a player got picked on so badly, they won. I've never seen that before, Sean. Have you?
Not really. I mean, was it satisfying?
It was really satisfying. It was interesting. It was crazy. I felt a little bummed because I was set up to win on literally my next turn. But I like when games end in an interesting fashion. Motainai was a perfect example of, I lost that my first game, and the way in which I lost that was intriguing enough that I ended up falling in love with that game. And this had a similar kind of feel to it where I lost in such an interesting way. I really dug this game. Thematically, the fact that it's more streamlined. Anyway, I know this sounds like an ad because, again, it's a Gray Fox game, but... It is. It's in the line. It's also a Tree Frog game. You'll find it on our website.
Tree Frog is defunct.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize.
The game itself is kind of in a weird limbo. We may or may not do something with it. There's no official decision on that yet.
Gotcha.
So that's the reason I feel more comfortable talking about it than I would any other typical Gray Fox title. And boy, I have skirted that line a whole bunch this week, Sean.
So it's interesting that you enjoy a Martin Wallace game.
This is the most I've ever enjoyed a Martin Wallace game, easily.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Like I said, I own 1st edition. I'm looking to get rid of it. We have another Gamers Garage sale coming up. Martin Wallace is kind of known for some rough rule books, and I'm glad that it got developed a little bit for 2nd edition. I'm very interested to try 2nd edition because there were a lot of things I liked about 1st edition. It's just a slog to get through that rule book. So.
Pick up 2nd edition because it streamlines things. I will say this, for the game you get, the setup time feels a little bit long in my book. But in terms of the gaming experience and some of the interesting things it does, I think it's really cool, personally. I like it a lot. And we don't have very many of them left, so maybe you should get on that.
Oh boy. Okay. Is Gray Fox sending a check?
not so much.
Okay.
I mean, to me, I get a paycheck from them
great.
because, I'm an employee, but yeah.
So anyway, that's Twilight Struggle,
What?
A Study in Emerald. Wow, I don't even know where that came from. A Study in Emerald, 2nd edition. Well, let's call it Twilight Struggle. Sure, why not?
Okay.
Last game I'm going to talk about is an expansion to one of my favorite games of all time. It's the Wind Gambit expansion to Scythe. I kind of teased this a couple weeks ago on the show when we had just gotten, had just gotten the copy. Have you had a chance to play with this yet, Alex?
Oh, no, definitely not. So here's the thing. This is a cool thing about Jamie Stegmaier as a person. And boy, oh boy, are we going to run into this in a couple of weeks when we hit the Charterstone review. But having met Jamie and played with him regularly for more than a month now, he is an awesome dude, as folks know in the gaming community, really loves his customers. But beyond that, he is a fairly humble guy. Like you enter his place on a game night, and it's not like, welcome to Stonemaier Game Night, brought to you by Scythe. By the way, I designed Scythe. Didn't you know that's cool? I love Scythe. Like it's not that. It's very much hey, let's play a bunch of other stuff. Hey, this is cool. Hey, this is fun. So at a Jamie Stegmaier Game Night, you're not playing a lot of Stonemaier games. You're not playing, say, a Viticulture or a Euphoria. You're playing a whole wide array of things. And Scythe has not come to the table. It's sort of a mini bucket list thing to play Scythe with Jamie, but I don't want to force the issue. It'll happen when it happens.
Okay.
Still undefeated.
Excellent. So let's talk about the Wind Gambit. It offers 2 new modules. First, it offers a way to change how the game ends. Typically in this Euro Ameritrash hybrid, but much more on the Euro side of things, the game would end when you have completed a 6th objective, and it ends immediately. Here, there are about a dozen different tiles that will end the game in different scenarios. So one might be play 20 turns. Everyone gets 20 turns, and that's it. How much can you get done in 20 turns? That's pretty interesting. There's another one that offers an additional objective that you can use, and basically it is just control the central hex, the factory. You just have to control it. You control it, you put your star there, and then at the end of the game, when someone places their 6th star, everyone who has completed that objective and them only, they each get 1 additional turn. So, so that's pretty interesting. So a lot of different ways to end the game, which I think for some people that have maybe complained that the ending seems abrupt or it comes out of nowhere, I mean, I feel like I'm generally pretty good at anticipating when the ending's going to come. Hopefully it's usually coming because I'm achieving it. But I think this kind of will throw people for a loop in that sense, kind of, and adding some replayability and variability to the game. So I think that's a really cool module, and I'm very excited to try out all the different end conditions. I think that's really cool. But I'm bearing the lead here because this has these amazing, are they 4-inch, 4.5, 5-inch airships. Now, they're all one sculpt. They're all different colors, one for all 7 factions. They're all the same sculpt, which I understand there's probably some production reasons for that. These things are huge, and we didn't try it on the small map. We have the large expanded map. We played it on that because it just seemed to make sense. And what's really cool is there are 2 different sets of rules that you can play with for these airships. So there's the aggressive tiles, and then there's, I guess, the defensive tiles. And each game, you're going to randomly select one of them that all airships will use. So they'll determine whether or not these airships can transport workers or resources, only one. And it'll also determine how far airships can move as part of a movement activation. Now, the airships don't initiate combats typically. I don't think there's anything in there that lets them initiate combats. But they do offer some ways that you can augment your combat abilities or do other things. So, like, one thing is whenever there's a combat on a space with an airship, opponents might have to pay a certain number of resources in order to attack that space or something like that. Lots of different variability there because you're just going to see these different combinations from game to game. And if you want to get especially crazy, every player can have their own different combination. That seems nuts. That kind of freaks me out because it'd be really hard to track all that information, but it might be worth it in a smaller player count game to give that a try. Now, this isn't available now. You'll have to wait till, I believe, early December. But I think pre-orders are up. It is awesome. It was very awesome. By the way, just full disclosure, that was an advanced review copy from Jamie, just so we have that full transparency out there. So I'm excited to play with this more. I think if I'm introducing new players who are gamers to Scythe, I think we'll play with it because it doesn't add that much more, but certainly for like a newer gamer, probably just start with the base game. So anyway, that is Scythe the Wind Gambit. So go ahead and check on pre-orders over at stonemeyergames.com. Definitely worth a look. So that's going to do it for our recent plays. Let's, Alex, head on over to the news desk.
Hey, it's me, the news guy, reading the news. First up in news, something Sean picked that I haven't read through. Oh, it's the Specter Ops expansion, Broken Covenant. Sean, what is this all about?
Well, it's a standalone expansion to Specter Ops from Plaid Hat Games. This was the hidden movement game designed by Emerson Matsauchi, a game that I'm not a big fan of. You liked it well enough.
Oh, I liked it a lot. Yeah. Very thematic, fun.
I'm just not a hidden movement guy. I think if you like hidden movement, you should definitely play Specter Ops because I think it's one of the ones that does the genre best. It's just not a genre for me. So, but anyway, this is pretty interesting because, like I said, it's a brand new standalone expansion that takes place in the jungles of South America, which is pretty interesting. And it's going to introduce new hunters, because basically you're playing these hunters that's trying to hunt down this Arc agent. The hunters work for Raxon, which has some connection to the Dead of Winter world. There's the Raxon Pharmaceuticals in Dead of Winter, and they're trying to hunt down this Arc player who has stolen secrets from Raxon. So there's all new hunters. There are new Arc agents. There's all sorts of new equipment, different cards, and you can go over to the Plaid Hat website that you can get a preview of some of this. There's like a new portable barrier, proximity mine, a med kit, and a mind tap. Interested what that mind tap does. All new minis. There's even someone that looks kind of like Lara Croft on rollerblades, which is an odd choice.
New Lara Croft or old Lara Croft?
Old Lara Croft, I guess. Not really okay. Lara Croft, but woman, short shorts, tank top. She's a jungle adventurer, and she has rollerblades on, which seemed like a poor choice for the jungles of South America.
Fun behind-the-scenes look for listeners, spelled in the show notes as Laura Craft.
Excellent. So anyway, keep an eye out for Specter Ops Broken Covenant from Plaid Hat if you're a fan of hidden movement.
Well, Sean is not, but I am.
Yeah. Different strokes for different folks, Alex.
Hey, it's another news item I have no familiarity with.
So the next bit of news is kind of interesting. Now, there was an announcement back in May 2017 that Games Workshop, the owners of Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer 40K, and all that, were partnering with Devil Pigs, who have the hero system. So like Heroes of Normandy, and there's another Cthulhu one. But anyway,
I don't know anything about this.
Great, excellent, good contribution.
You're welcome.
That there was going to be a partnership between them. And kind of unclear what that would mean, especially since Games Workshop had recently pulled its licenses from Fantasy Flight Games, and that partnership no longer existed. And it looked like Games Workshop was making a push for more of their hobby-level games that they were producing. So this was kind of interesting news, and we're kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. But they've announced Warhammer 40,000 Heroes of Blackreach, a 2-player game that pits Ultramarines against Orcs. That includes an 8-scenario campaign and hundreds of bits, and it's going to retail for $75. So now this is not a miniatures game. This is the Heroes of Normandy, or the Heroes system, like Heroes of Normandy, where it's these cardboard chits on a map, and it's a tactical combat game. I haven't actually played Heroes of Normandy. The fact that it's not miniatures is kind of weird to me, but I'd definitely be willing to give it a shot. And now it's got an IP that I really enjoy. And $75 seems like about the right price point. I don't know. Without minis, it's kind of hard to say. But they're going to have a bunch of expansions coming out, just like they've had for Heroes of Normandy. There's going to be an Orc reinforcement pack, Ultramarines reinforcement pack, which are going to have new scenarios and a whole bunch more units. Orc freebooters, Ultramarine Vanguard veteran squads. So, yeah, this is going to release, I believe, in 2018. And then the Chaos and Eldar, and I'm most interested in Chaos, is going to release sometime in 2019. So,
all right.
Excited, Alex?
You have a fun, sexy time with that one, Sean.
Okay.
Yep. Doesn't sound like anything I'm going to be interested in.
You don't mind tactical combat games? Battle Lore?
I don't mind, but it's not something I'm going to go out of my way to go get.
Yeah, but it's of a similar weight to Battle Lore.
Okay. Excellent.
And Battlelord.
So Battlelord, what's interesting is I really enjoy it when I play it.
Yeah.
But it's never going to be anything I'm going to buy, and it's likely not something I'm going to suggest. Even though I think it's a great game and I have fun with it. I don't know why that is, but it's in that weird kind of Twilight Zone.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, in lieu of a discussion about a Kickstarter this week, we're going to go over to my interview with Lance Myxter, the Undead Viking from Tasty Minstrel Games, and he's going to be talking about the brand new Kickstarter, the Deluxified version of Downfall, which is coming to Kickstarter on October 17th, about a week after this episode drops.
It's Sean's Kickstarter Corner with a K.
I remember the day the bombs fell. The sun was shining. Children played. People were happy. When we crawled out of the rubble, I first thought those that had died were the lucky ones. Now, we fortunate survivors band together to fight off our enemies, scrape together what resources we can find, and try to rebuild our lost world. If we don't, it will be our downfall.
All right. Well, fortunate to be sitting down with Lance Myxter, the Undead Viking, also from Tasty Minstrel Games. Lance, buddy, how you doing?
Sean, it is great to be here. I am doing fantastic, as I like to say. So how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's kind of one of our off weeks, so to speak, and still adjusting to this new schedule. But it affords me more time to talk to people like you.
Well, aren't you and I both very lucky in that regard? So
last time we had you on was actually a little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, back for one of our very early Patreon interviews, back before Alex, stole away the Patreon interviews from me. And you had just kind of started, I think thereabouts, started working for Tasty Minstrel Games. And,
yeah, I've been with. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, I mean, you've had plenty of time to settle in. Just kind of want to check in, and what's that been like now that you've been there for a good while?
People always ask you. One of the cool things is like when I ever have to go anywhere and you have to fill out a form, and they ask you for what is your job, that thing. And and so one of the things is that like recently I went to the doctor. I'm gonna have LASIK surgery done for my eyes, right? And so I had to fill out their form, and who do you work for, and this sort of thing, and then I wrote down the name of the company, and so it says Tasty Minstrel Games. When people are like, what's that? And when people see games and they immediately think video games.
Sure,
almost always. And then I had to explain, no, I work for a board game publisher. And then they kind of give me that like what, and so then I have to kind of explain, this isn't, these are, you go through this, you've done it. You had to explain it's a designer board game. What does that mean? Well, it means like the name of the person who created the game is on the game. It's there, and you kind of try to give the backstory a little bit to it. And, it's one of those things where, I find myself kind of enjoying like explaining it, mostly because it's like I've really realized just how ridiculously lucky I am to have the job that I have. I worked for a bank for a little over a decade and a half, and the job paid me very well. I met my wife at my job, and I have a fabulous relationship with her and 2 kids that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. So I owe my old job a lot, as far as what it gave me and the opportunities it gave me and things like that. But it's just night and day. As far as just job happiness / satisfaction. I remember like being really, really scared, and I probably said this in the interview way back then, but I remember being really scared. It's like, I'm walking away from a job I could do for another. I could have worked at the bank for 20 more years and retired, and they would give me the watch and the pension and whatever, and I didn't go off and I'd enjoy my grandchildren and stuff like that. But I told my wife, I said, I just don't want to be 75 years old and say, hey, maybe I should have taken that job, and so it's one of those things where I just said, you you get one trip, right? You get one life. Why not try to do this? And it's like I said, it's pretty amazing. It's I every day I get up with my children, I take them to school, I come home, and then I'm working on board games. I'm doing something with board games. I'm recording podcasts for the TMG podcast. I am working on the Kickstarter projects. I'm talking to media influencers like you. And yeah. I mean, it's just stuff like that. But it's all about creating board games and being part of a board game company and like going to conventions and all these things that are just like there's still days where you just like, man, why can't I just figure this out? Why can't we figure this out? Why can't we get this whatever fixed kind of thing?
Sure.
But it's still way better than my best day ever at the bank. It's still way better. I mean, I'm extremely fortunate to be doing the job that I do, and it's one of those things where the days that I do find myself kind of kicking the can down the street, being annoyed at stuff, I have to just kind of slap myself and just tell myself just how lucky I am. So,
well, that's very cool. No, definitely. Well. Yeah. As a media influencer, such as myself, I guess we should influence the Dukes of Dice listeners to learn a little bit about Downfall, which is something that I've been following a little bit off and on. Really cool theme, kind of a post-apocalyptic theme. There's some card drafting. Now, my understanding is this is going to be up on Kickstarter about a week after this episode airs. So this episode is going to go up on October 9th, and you guys start a little bit after that. Is that right?
October 17th is the launch date for Downfall. Downfall is it is the first game of this type that TMG has ever decided to try and create. It is a heavily thematic game, and I say this, and please don't I said this. This isn't Blood Rage. So whenever I say this, I'm always tentative. I was like, but I describe it to people as like, a thematic game that is 4X. Like it is a game about like the nuclear war has happened like about 200 years in the future. Nuclear war has devastated the Earth. 99% of the world's population is dead. And each player, 3 to 6 players, each player controls a faction, and it is their job to try and explore like the destroyed world that is left, gather resources, research technology, have conflicts with one another, fight over area, and try to feed your people, keep them alive, fight off radiation, as I said, fight against each other, and it's totally unlike anything TMG has ever created. TMG, I mean, my opinion is that we are known for our strategy Euro games, right? And this is a game that has strategy and Euro elements. It has area control. It has resource collection. It has card drafting. The combat in the game is non-dice. It's deterministic combat. That there's no randomness to it. So it's like it's a comparison of power in different areas and things like that. So it's a thematic, heavily thematic game with Euro elements, much like a game like Blood Rage, which was a heavily thematic game, fantastic to look at, which we like to think Downfall is as well. But ultimately, it was an area control game with card drafting. And so, no, this is not Blood Rage. So don't listen to this and say he said it was Blood Rage. This game is not Blood Rage, but I liken it to that type of a game, if you will. Like I said, this one has exploration. You have hexes that you're going to have to go and explore. You turn them over and you see what's there, that sort of thing. You each person has a hand of cards. You're going to pick one of those cards. You're going to put it on the table, and then you all reveal them. And then each card has 2 actions on it. You can pick which one you want to do, and then you hand the other cards to the person next to you. And then after everybody resolves their actions, everybody draws another card and puts it into their hand. Sometimes people will draw a card that is called a winter card into their hand, and when that happens, there is a winter track on the game, and you push every time a winter card is drawn, you push the winter track up, and at certain points you are going to have events. Then you'll draw an event card, and things will happen, like radiation will spread, or you'll have to feed your people, or they're going to starve, things like that. And ultimately, after a certain number of winter cards are drawn, that will actually cause the end of the game to happen, and then you'll compare points and see who wins the game. So I always like games where you don't know exactly when it's going to end, right?
Sure.
It's just like, okay, well, it's like you can kind of get an idea, you're getting close. So if you're gonna go for the big points, or try to like have that one last gasp to try to like overtake the leader, you know that it's getting close, but there's no guarantee that it's ending at any specific time. So
interesting.
And I like that about that. And like I said, it's asymmetrical. Each one of the factions, they have their specialties, they have their powers, and they are like deeply thematic. There's the military leader, there's the scientist, there's the economist, things like that, where they each have their own like bonuses and negatives, things that they excel at, things that they aren't so good at. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like the scientist can't fight. It's just they're not going to be as good at it,
right,
as the military leader, if you will.
Okay, so I mean, not to compare it to Blood Rage, because it's not Blood Rage, because obviously
it's not Blood Rage. Did you hear?
It's not Blood Rage. All right, everyone, that should be the big takeaway. But because it's got more of that 4X element, like you said, and it sounds like it's a little bit more complex. Because for all its bells and whistles, Blood Rage is kind of a fairly simple game. Not simple, but you know what I'm saying. It's kind of
Blood Rage. Not to review a Blood Rage game, but Blood Rage really shines on like the interaction of the people, and like what you can kind of force other people to do to help you out, kind of thing. Like making them kill off your guys if you're getting points for killing off your guys, things like that. And it's just and you kind of you succeed by having a theme to your clan, so to speak, and you get your points that way. This one, it follows more of a real 4X element. Everything is going to get you points. When you explore and do things, you're going to get points. When you have conflicts, you have points and things like that. I'm not going to say it's a point salad game, because it really doesn't feel like a point salad game, but it's one of those things where you do have to optimize yourself, and you do have to take a look at the different actions that you have, and you do have to weigh yourself against, ultimately, right, you have to score points to win. But it's one of those things where, do I take a lesser action right now that wouldn't score me as many points if I did something else, because it builds me a stronger base. Maybe researching technology this round won't get me as many more points, but 2-3 turns down the road, it's really going to pay off in dividends and things like that. And so, and I like games that do that. I like games where like you have those choices you have to make, where you have to like you have to think downriver a bit before you make up your mind.
So it sounds like there's a little bit of like a tech tree built in.
Yes, there you do research technology, you got tech tree. And it's like I said, it's got all the 4X. It's got the expand, the exploit, exterminate, and
explore.
Thank you. So there you go. I mean, and it's got all that stuff, and because we're taking it to Kickstarter, TMG. When we take things to Kickstarter now, we make sure that we make a deluxe version of the game. We are going to deluxify the heck out of this one. It's going to have metal coins. It's going to have miniatures. It's going to have big chunky wooden bits. And as with all the other Kickstarters we've done, the more backers we get, the more funding we get. We're just going to put more and more stuff into that box. And so when you finally do get this giant, heavy honker of a box, it's going to be filled to the brim with awesome stuff that, like, when you put it together and put it on your table, people will walk by if you're at like your local game store for game night, and people are going to walk by that table and be like, holy cow, what are you playing? That kind of thing. Right. It's gonna, but that being said, as always, we're not going to put anything into the Kickstarter box, the Deluxified box, that's exclusive. There's nothing going to be in there that it's like, it's like, if you don't have this, it's going to be a different game. The retail box will play exactly the same. It's just the bells and whistles and the chrome that's being added to enhance the experience of playing the game.
Gotcha. So I want to keep talking about Downfall, but I just want to kind of step away real quick because you mentioned how TMG runs these Kickstarters where you're deluxifying, which is a fantastic marketing tool, right? Because it's this whole concept of TMG creates these Kickstarters which are deluxifying these games. And by the way, well before the interview, we probably made the caveat, oh, by the way, TMG is a sponsor of the show, blah, 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 blah. We've made that. But the TMG Deluxified copies are really fantastic. Like, so it's not just like a marketing gimmick. Like, the end result is this amazing product. And yeah,
there's two things about that I always say. First of all, like the very first ever deluxe copy that we did was Orleans.
Oh yeah,
and
I backed that.
And that actually that just stemmed from a weird conversation. I was with the company at that time. I was, I still did a little bit of work for TMG on the side. It was just one of those things where, I've been friends with Michael Mendez, for quite a long time, like 6-7 years now. And I remember he just offhandedly said, he went to Essen, he played Orleans, and he thought the game was amazing. He said it was the best game he played when he was there. And he said, I want to publish this. And so then they were going to publish it. But then he just said, what if, he's like, he just basically was one of those things where he didn't really like pulling the cardboard tokens out of the bag. He said, how much cooler would this be if these were wooden, right?
Yeah.
And so then he kind of looked into that, and then he kind of looked at what if the coins, that you have, and what if these were metal? And he just kind of looked into these different things, and he said, what if I just made the stuff better? And then he said, well, what if I made that, like a deluxe version of the game that you could get through Kickstarter and Kickstarter only? And that was his idea. And I don't know if he had planned on saying we're going to make, like this, deluxified thing, a thing, because now, like, he's trademarked Deluxified and things like that. And
that was going to be my next question, but good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like now, and I've said this before, and you never say never, right? You can't hold me to this. You can't, because not for sure. But my understanding, and things can always change, but my understanding is that we will never run a Kickstarter again unless we're offering a deluxe version of the game. Sure. And the reason why we do that isn't like you say, it's a marketing tool. And yes, I agree. It is a marketing tool. It definitely does get people to get in on the ground floor, because it's like, oh, look, it's like, because there's definitely, I get an email probably every week from somebody, can I still get a deluxe version of Yokohama? Unfortunately, no. They're gone. They ask if they can do Orleans. One of the things we always get when we run a Kickstarter is, can we use the pledge manager to also get a deluxe version of Crusaders? No, you can't. Yeah. It's one of those things we just have to say over and over again, you can't do it, because people miss out on them, and then they feel bad, that they didn't get this like really good copy. But the thing is that we look at it as, one, it's a way to give something back to, and I'll fully admit, yes, it definitely is a marketing tool. But that I'm not gonna like put my head in the sand and say, nope. No, I get it, and it's. I have a few feelings. One, it is a way that we can give something to the people that back us, right? I mean, you could sit back and wait and get a copy of Yokohama or Flow of History or Chimera Station or any of the other games we've deluxified. You can wait, right? But if you give us that money up front, that shows that you have trust and you have faith in us to create a good game, a game that you're going to love to have on your shelf, and we want to give something back. And we also know that for the most part, this isn't everybody, but for the most part, people like having, that chrome. They like having those. I mean, there's just there is something better about playing Orleans with the bag full of the wooden chits. The noise, the texture, the whole process. It's a better experience, and that's what we want people to have. And so. It's, it is one of those things where we can give that back, we can do it. And then the cool thing is that we're never in a situation where it's like we're trying to like, double dip. Like if we put metal coins into the box, we're charging the people that are backing us, we're charging them exactly what it costs us extra to put those things into the box. You know, and especially like with the Crusaders, the last Kickstarter we did, towards the end, like we were still getting blown away. People are backing and we were so excited. And we were like, when we started adding like further things into the box, because we were so excited about everybody's thing, we were actually cutting into our profit margins at the end, you know, because it was just like, that's fine, you know, it's because it was the right thing to do.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that Michael always says. He says, we're not going to make choices with TMG because we can make money doing it. And trust me, I've had arguments with Michael. It's like, you know, we need to do this. We could make a lot of money doing that. And he just gets this little smile on his face and he just shakes his head. He's like, that's not what we do. You know, he says that to me all the time. He's like, we do things because we want to make good games, and we want people to, when they look at the TMG logo on a box, you know, and they see that dragon, they see Dargon on there, they know that what's inside that box is amazing and awesome, and they know that they're going to have fun playing that game. And he said, and if we start doing things just for money, that's the steps we start taking, where eventually people aren't going to have faith in that logo and they're not going to believe in my company. And so
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have, you know, there's been several TMG Kickstarters I've backed, the Deluxified versions that I've backed. I've had other quote-unquote deluxe versions of other games, other publishers. I'm not going to name names, and it's very clear that it's deluxe in quotes, but the Deluxified versions are very solid. So, I mean, and again, like I said, yes, we you know, you're a sponsor of the show, but I've been a backer of TMG Kickstarters on numerous occasions, and so I have that faith in you guys, and you guys want to be a sponsor of the show. If you weren't a company that I didn't think was doing a fantastic job, so.
And you know what, and I just like to say that, you know, I mean, and this is I'm not trying to glad hand you while you glad hand me, but no, one of the cool, I mean, we were really happy to be sponsors of you. I mean, and I know for a fact that besides me, I know for a fact that both Daniel and Michael listen to your podcast every week, and Seth tries to listen to it as often as he can, and they all enjoy it a great deal. So
cool.
We're very proud of the fact that we helped get this show on the air.
Well, cool. No, we definitely appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit more about Downfall itself. It's got kind of an interesting design pedigree. It's the same designer as Mystic Vale and Custom Heroes. Justin Clare, is that
John D. Clare.
John D. Clare. There we go.
John D. Clare, a very tasty donut. No.
But there's no card crafting in this game.
There's no card crafting. Downfall is his baby. It is his game that this is his first big design that he's been working on for many, many years. He's going to be on the TMG podcast here. I think it's this Friday or next Friday is his episode, and I need to edit that. But he kind of went into the whole process that he went through to get this game created, and I forget the convention that he went to. But he went to a convention and he showed Downfall to Seth and Michael, and they played the game, and this is like 6-7 years ago, I think was the timeline.
Wow.
And it might be a little less, okay, you know, but whatever. It's just let's say 5 years, 6 years, whatever. And he went and they played it. And like they had somewhere else they had to be, like they had a meeting, and they said, okay, well, thanks. And they got up from the table and left. And he was like, well, that sucks. They didn't like the game, right? Because they didn't say anything this way or that way or whatever. And so like the next day, John was like in the game room or whatever, and Michael approached him and he said, hey, do you have that copy of Downfall on you? And he's like, yeah, I do. And he's like, can I borrow it? I want to play it again. And he said, yeah, sure. And then like he went off and played it again, and he was like, yep, it was just as awesome as the first time. I want to publish it. And that's how it got signed with TMG. Now it took there was like some development that went on. You know, it's still pretty much the same game that he created, but there was actually a period of time when a couple years ago when the game was going to get published, but then It was one of those things where I think that the decision was made that they were going to add, we were going to actually make it a miniatures game. Like before, it was just little cardboard tokens and things like that. But the decision was made that, like, no, it's like we could put miniatures and they would look pretty amazing. And the decision was made by both John and TMG to do that. And that kind of course, changes gears as far as production goes and things like that. It's easy to make a sheet of cardboard counters, but to actually, make miniatures and things like that, then now you're dealing with, sculpts and changing some artwork and things like that. So it's been a long and winding road. John does a much better job telling that entire story because he lived it, and you can check that out if you want to on the podcast for TMG. But it's something where this, like I said, this was his baby. This was something that, like, he always wanted to make this kind of game. Here, I can actually here. Let me look up this quote for you here, and I'll give you a quote directly from the horse's mouth. From him, and this is something that'll be on the Kickstarter page. There's a Kickstarter exclusive for you. Nice. So this is what he said. I asked him. I said, I said, use your own words and tell me why you wanted to make this game. And this is what he said. He said, this is John D. Clare, the designer of Downfall, said, the design of Downfall came from a desire to create the perfect game for me and my tastes as a gamer. An epic, main event, true 4X. I wanted to be set on an Earth-based board, not space, with primarily economy-based area control, but with the constant tension of a tactical, non-luck-based combat. I wanted to play for a high player count without adding downtime, and I wanted the game to maintain a constant urgency in every decision, beginning with turn 1. It was a long road to go from the initial concepts for a game of this scale to a finely tuned game. Along that road, there were quite a few major redesigns and months of sitting on the shelf while I worked on other games. But in the end, I ended up with a game that I am more excited to pull off the shelf and play than any other game. The satisfying difficulty in each decision, the tension yet fast-paced of each round, and the story arc building to a climactic ending make for a game that will take a really long time before I get tired of it. But take all of that with an ounce of salt because I designed the game for me. Hopefully, this sounds like something that will fit for you and your game group as well.
Cool.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a labor of love for John, and that isn't to say that Mystic Vale wasn't a labor of love, and that isn't to say that because the other game you just said the name, the Heroes game, Custom Heroes, which I played, and that game is fantastic.
It's great.
I love that game.
Yeah.
But that's not to say those games weren't labors of love, but this is what I consider his baby. You know? So, and he's super excited to see it. I talk with him and email with him probably every day, and he's getting antsy. Would be a good way to put it. So yeah.
So like you said, this is going live October 17th. Have you guys finalized pledge levels, or is that still kind of in flux?
Well, I mean, I think they're pretty finalized. But I mean, it looks like it's most likely going to be, if you want retail version, it's 60. If you want the deluxe, it's going to be 80.
Okay. Subject to change.
Subject to change. So, once again, never say never. Don't hold me to it. You can't, this isn't a court of law, that kind of thing. I'm not under oath, but no.
I am an officer of the court. So just saying.
No. Yeah, no. So, but no, it is a game that, if you're going to go with the deluxe version, you're going to pay $20 more, which is kind of our standard.
Sure.
And it's going to be an $80. I mean, we try to say that the game would be worth $100, the MSRP if it was ever sold, which we don't really sell them because we don't put them in the stores. But it's going to be a deluxe version. It's going to have a ton of stuff in it. If you absolutely positively had to sell it or something like that, as with I've seen other people, I think Deluxe Orleans go for around $200 right now on eBay or something like that.
Crazy.
So I mean, yeah. So if you got one of those, save it for your kid's college or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got a whole Magic collection that's Chewy's college fund. So
no, there you go. That's awesome. I mean, is it worth that much? Do you think?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a bunch of dual lands and Force of Wills and no Power 9 or anything like that. But
look
but
at
it's
you.
but it's a good collection. It's a solid collection.
Well, put it in a safety deposit box, man. Don't leave it in your house. So it's gonna get burned to the ground.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're kind of freaking me out. Nah.
Well, no. I mean, seriously. I mean, I know. I mean, this isn't just for that stuff. Like, but I know people that like they have stuff like that, and not that their house is burned down and everything. But if you have an item that's like that small,
right,
that you're not taking, if they're not taking out and using it, like a safety deposit box costs you like $6 or something a month. You can shop around, and you can find one super cheap. And you're telling me that if you go to a bank and you get one of those, and you could put, those dual lands, how much are those worth each?
They run from like 100 something to like 300 depending on which land they are.
So let's say you had 10 of those. Let's say you had 10 of those. That's worth $3,000.
I've got more than 10. I've got more. Oh than 10.
So Sean, don't be a goof.
Well, but here's the thing. I'm actually playing with them still. I'm playing.
Well,
but they're double sleeved. They're double sleeved.
Oh, okay.
So it's fine. and I don't riffle shuffle, so it's fine.
And you pick them up with the tweezers and slowly lay them down.
No,
right?
Tweezers are the tweezers is amateur hour. You pick them up with a dentist's suction cup pen. Which we actually just discussed on our Board Game Geek Guild, Guild number 2008, for picking up chits in GMT style war games. Anyway, we are.
Fair enough.
You know what? All of the crap that I order, all of the extra stuff for like gaming accessories, my fiance Raquel hasn't batted an eye at. She's like, oh, that's cool. But for some reason, the suction cup pen, she just like mercilessly made fun of me for like a week. But whatever.
Oh, that's for me. I get made fun of for my for my like I'm big into Warhammer now, and so like all of my painting doodads,
sure,
all my little my special little tools and like places to put my paint and like my palette stuff and things like that. My wife just sits there, what is this for? Well, see, this one, it's a wet palette, so it'll keep the
nice.
paint.
Yeah.
Just like, and she's just like, and how much did this cost you? It's not about the cost, honey. It's so yeah, I understand you. I feel your pain, so to speak.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Well, any final words for Downfall? Any ways?
Nothing. Just check it out. October 17th. If you have any questions about it at all, you can definitely reach out to me. You can find me on the Twitter as the Undead Viking. Just Undead Viking, not the Undead Viking, but Undead Viking on Twitter. You can also email me directly at lance@playtmg.com. So I mean that's Downfall, and it is it's one of those games where it's just a big epic game, and it isn't something we've ever created before, and we are just ridiculously excited to put this one out there and to have people be able to play it, because I've played the game and I'm just like, wow, this is I'm having so much fun playing this game, and I'm just like, when can we give this game to people? When can we get this into people's hands? And so, it's one of those things where I'm going to be really excited for when people get a chance to actually play it as well.
Cool, very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes too, and excited to give it a play. So, all right. Well, Lance, thank you very much for coming on, taking some time to talk about TMG, talk about Downfall, and appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, man, and I really appreciate you allowing me to be on here to tell everybody about it. So,
all right, well, thank you, Lance. All right, so for more information, you can go on over to the Kickstarter once it's live, or you can go over to playtmg.com to check out more information about Downfall. So, Alex, are you a fan of bluffing games?
Certain bluffing games.
Okay. What's one of your favorite... Way to set up the bit here. So what's your favorite bluffing game, Alex?
It might be something like Sheriff of Nottingham. Oh. Is that what you're trying to lead me to, Sean?
It sure is, Alex. You're really good at this. So we wanted to highlight the fact that a new expansion for Sheriff of Nottingham is coming out from our friends over at Arcane Wonders. It's called the Merry Men expansion, and this contains 5 modules that can be added to the base game and adds in the option of a 6-player as well. You can also play with deputies in the 6-player games, where instead of having a single sheriff, these deputies are added that can also be searching bags of some of the other players. The Merry Men module adds new illegal goods in the form of Merry Men characters. If they're successfully smuggled in, players will reveal it and activate certain special abilities. That sounds really cool. There's also the Black Market module. This adds 3 sets of bonus cards that display illegal goods. The first player who successfully smuggles the indicated goods receives the bonus cards and a large reward. And then finally, as a lawyer, I love laws, Alex. You know I do, right?
Oh, yeah, you're all about laws. I hear you talking all the time about laws and legal things and laws.
Law this, law that. Well, the last module is laws. The sheriff must draw 3 law cards and choose 2 to keep. The chosen laws are in play for that entire round. Lots of cool stuff here. Sheriff is a game that I love myself, Alex, you love, and I think this expansion sounds really sweet. It's available now. Go check out arcanewonders.com.
Arcane Wonders, it's never a blunder when you go with Arcane Wonders. This week we're talking about a game from another St. Louis company. Man, St. Louis appearing all over this podcast. It's a thematic game, a game where you are trying to scare off invaders off of your island. Is it a game that is able to succeed despite its heft because of its theme, or is it a game that gets a little bogged down? We'll tell you, it's Spirit Island.
All right, Spirit Island, designed by R. Eric Roos, I believe. R. Eric Roos.
I'm not going to help you with that. I don't know.
Great, excellent. Published by Greater Than Games. This is a co-op game where, like you mentioned in the intro, you are playing a bunch of these island spirits that are basically trying to repel these colonial invaders. And you're getting a little help from the Dahan, who are the native inhabitants. So what you'll do is you'll set up the board with these modular tiles. They're made up of a bunch of different land types. So there are mountains and sands and wetlands and things like that. And on the board, you're going to initially seed it with some towns of these invaders, some cities, and then some of the explorers, who are the little dudes that come out. And then there's also these little huts that represent the Dahan. And depending on what phase of the game you're in, or rather what stage of the game you're in, you either need to remove every single invader from the game, or later just the towns and cities, or finally just the cities. And at that point, things are getting pretty dicey, and or you're super powerful that it's kind of an interesting proposition. Now, the turn consists of you basically playing cards from your hand. You're taking some actions to gain some cards, to gain energy to pay for the cards. But basically, you play cards, and they're either fast or they're slow. So if you're going to play fast cards, they're going to occur before the invader AI gets to take its actions. Slow happens afterwards. So it's kind of trying to figure out, what do I need to have to happen now versus what can happen afterwards. Now, once you play out these cards, you resolve the fast actions, and then the invaders are going to ravage. They're going to attack a certain type of land. So early on in the game, it might say, okay, all of the invaders in the forest spaces, they're going to ravage. And based on how many and what type of units there are, they're going to do a certain amount of damage. If you're doing 2 damage, you're going to blight the island. Blight is one of the end game conditions. Once you put too much blight on the board, you lose. And there's a little bit of cascading blight that can happen, kind of like you might see in Pandemic. So you really got to watch out for that. Now, the invaders will also attack any of the Dahan that are there, but if any of the Dahan survive, they're going to get to attack back, killing some of the invaders and hopefully wiping them out from the area. Then what's going to happen is that usually a different land type is going to build. So if there is no city, or rather if there's no city where there happens to be a settlement, then the city will spring up and kind of vice versa. And then there's an explore phase where another card gets flipped over that's going to have new explorers come out on that type of land. So you're constantly populating the board with these invaders and trying to keep it under control. Once you do that, you go to the slow phase, the slow card play phase, and hopefully you're cleaning up some of the mess that you left around. you're going to keep doing this. There's some hand management. There's some hand building. There's a certain amount of area control is the wrong word, but you have to put out your presence onto the board so you can affect certain parts of the board. That's a really rough rules explanation, but I think it's enough to kind of talk about our review here. So that's the rough of it of how you play Spirit Island. Alex, your general thoughts?
So this game checks a lot of boxes, Sean.
That's
it checks a lot of good boxes. It's player powers that feel satisfying. They're player powers that feel completely unique and tied to that character. It's a game that is highly thematic. Really quite thematic, I find. Incredibly thematic. It's a cooperative game, which I tend to enjoy. It's a clever game. It's a game where you see a lot of the mechanics in it and you think, man, that's really well implemented. That's really well done. And
you mean
at
butts?
The end of the day...
I feel like there's a butt.
There's a giant butt.
Oh, boy.
I don't have any fun playing it.
Oh. Okay, let me ask you this. What player counts did you play at?
I played at 4 players and 3 players.
Okay. I played at 2, 3, and 4. I got 5 plays of this in. And I really liked it. I really liked it quite a bit.
And this is a Sean... By the way, to be clear right off the bat, this is a Sean game and not an Alex game. All the way.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
From first blush, I knew this was a Sean game and not an Alex game.
And what surprised me was that you kind of pushed so hard to review it, because it's not the kind of game that you would normally push a review.
It's not because it was a game that fit well. It's a game that I think a lot of people are interested in. And when we're bi-weekly, I think there's a practical reason for that.
Sure.
It's not it's not an Alex likes this game, hey, we should review it kind of game reason. Ugh. It's a hey, this is hot and a lot of people are talking about it. Let's talk about it too kind of thing.
Sure.
Behind the scenes peek yet again.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really good. I think I have a preferred play count. I don't think I like it a whole lot. No, not that I don't like it at 4, but it can certainly there's some downtime, and I think there's too much AP at 4. But overall, I like the fact that there's some engine building. Love engine building, right? Because the more you put your presence out on the board, the more cards you're able to play at a time, the more energy you gain. And then when you play with the advanced spirits, it's giving you these other bonuses of elements and some other things too. So as you're playing these cards, it's just a really interesting puzzle of, okay, we need to push these Dahan from this space to this space. Hey, I can gather these 2 explorers from this space to this space. By the way, those are different mechanics, pushing and gathering. And then on top of it, you have these innate powers. So when you play certain cards, they have certain elements on them, these little icons on the side. And if you have a certain threshold of icons, you activate your innate powers. Which, if you're not activating or trying to activate your innate powers, I don't think you're doing particularly well. I pretty much ignored my innate powers, and I didn't gain new cards that would help with them my first game, and it was bad. But as the game went on, or as my plays went on, I realized there's some good synergy there. And ultimately, I think that, and we'll kind of hear about this from the guild too, but this is a great way to get rid of the alpha gamer mentality in a lot of co-ops, because there is too much to figure out, especially in 4 players. You have to synergize. You have to, because these are all pretty much simultaneous turns, and you have to synergize. You have to figure out the right order to do things. You can't just play your stuff and be it. Now, not to say that there can't be alpha gaming, but for the most part, one player should not be able to process everything that's in every other player's hands, process all of their innate powers. It turns into, hey, I kind of need someone to do this. Can anyone do this over here? And I feel like that's a really satisfying co-op game.
And I hear this all the time of it solves the alpha gamer problem, Sean.
Not fully.
Not fully. And part of it for me is the person who knows the game best and the person who has the best grasp of things can absolutely take over and say, oh, well, actually, you should play it in this, and this order. I kind of get what you're saying in that one person can't totally dominate and that they can't 100% solve things without seeing a player's hand. Right. But I certainly found enough instances in playing this game where someone could certainly act as the alpha player and it still effectively was that.
Okay.
So that was my experience. A little different, maybe.
So there certainly comes a certain point where, like, we had the final play last night. Nick was playing the lightning elemental, and he was just super powerful. He had the right combination of cards. He had enough energy to spend on it. He got to play a bunch of cards, and he was just like, Jared and I were just kind of like along for the ride, and that's fine. Like, that was fine. Like, there were certainly moments where we were, it's like the shake and bake, and I helped.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it was still enjoyable, and it's still an enjoyable puzzle. All right, let's talk about the rulebook. I did not like it. I did not like the rulebook. It is split into two halves. There is the sequence of play half, and it kind of jumps in with some game concepts here and there in these little call-out boxes. And then there's the game concepts half. And maybe I would have liked it more had I read the game concepts first and then the sequence of play, but it was just kind of a weird way to do it, and I wasn't particularly crazy about it. I found that looking rules up naturally was difficult, but that once I kept remembering, oh, there's a good table of contents, it was fine. So the table of contents is your friend when you're trying to look stuff up. But I think at this point, I mean, I've got a pretty solid handle on the rules. Maybe there's some corner cases I still need to look up, but yeah, not a great rule book in the sense of comprehension, but it does provide plenty of examples. It does look good. It's big enough, and it is well divided once you realize what's going on there. So, yeah, let's talk about art and components.
It is a gorgeous game.
Oh yeah,
It's gorgeous, and it has great table presence. It inherently looks like something that is a beautiful, immersive gamer experience. The art on the different spirits is well done. The components themselves are well done. And quite frankly, Sean, I don't have any complaints here, and I think it's a real strength of the game.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think, and I can't think of any nitpicks I have, really. Good card quality. The art is excellent on the cards, excellent on the board. Iconography, I think, is pretty clear. There's a couple weird things here and there, but once you've played a game, I think it all becomes pretty clear. I like that all of the evil pieces, the invader pieces, are plastic, right? Artificial, man-made, whereas the Dahan, the native inhabitants of the island are wooden, so that natural thing. And that's an interesting...
The mushroom people.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice that they made there. Lots of good stuff on the player boards where it kind of gives you the rundown of what your different powers do. There's good helper or play aid cards. I think it's a solid production, and I think it's well worth the value of this game. So yeah, I agree. I don't think there's really any issue with the production or art. It's beautiful.
I would say generally Watchdog Alex is very, very quiet on this one because value is off the charts with this game as a whole, Sean.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I was saying before that I think I prefer this at 2 or 3 players. I think 3 players is probably the sweet spot. At 3 players, you have enough different powers that you can kind of do everything you need to do without having to think too much outside the box. And at 3 players, there's just enough players that you're able to kind of track all the information without kind of the planning time ahead of the card play taking too long. I think once you hit 4 players, that planning time is just brutal, especially later in the game when when things are just getting a little bit dicey. But maybe that improves with experienced players. I mean, I'm assuming it would, but I think I'm going to prefer this at 3 players. 2 players was interesting. It was really snappy. We played 2 players with 2 of the special spirits, which, so there's this one spirit that cannot do damage. It can never damage the invaders. But instead, every time it would deal damage, it instead generates fear. And we haven't really talked about fear, but fear is this mechanic. Sometimes they'll say, do this, gain 2 fear. Or if you do this or that, gain a fear for each time you do that. And fear is these pool of chits, and as you cycle through them, and it's dependent on the number of players, but as you cycle through them, you're going to gain a fear card. The fear card is 2 things. It's the timer that helps you, and it also gives you some special powers that resolve at the start of the invader phase. And they're usually really good. Sometimes it'll be bad luck, and you get one that just doesn't do anything for you, or it's minimal effect. But as you go through the fear cards, the objectives, the win conditions get a little bit easier and easier. But at the same time, the invader deck is getting harder and harder because every time you flip a new invader card, it's giving you 1 land type that's going to trigger in the various phases. Eventually, it's giving you 2 land types per card, which can get brutal, very brutal.
I can see this being snappy at 2 players. Sean, does the beefy setup that comes with this warrant a 2-player game? In other words, is the setup so much that if you had only 2 players, would it feel worth it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I'd probably play back-to-back games at that point. I enjoyed enough. Yeah, I enjoyed enough and it's snappy enough at 2 that I would definitely play back to back. I think this is something that Mariah will want to play. She's gotten several plays of this in with me, and she's like, I love this game. This is one of my new favorite games. And it's kind of a strange, I'm like, oh, okay. She likes co-ops, which this has in its favor, obviously, but every now and then she kind of likes some meatier games, and she certainly liked this. So I could see her and I really enjoying this. I don't think Raquel would enjoy this because one of us may alpha game a bit too much if Raquel and I played.
Well, and not to mention the AP, because there are certainly points in this game where AP can creep in a big way, and that's a huge issue for Raquel, and it was a bit of an issue for me in playing this too.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, but I think it's fine at 2 players, even with that setup. Again, I'm going to play it a couple times. But overall, I mean, I think that the puzzle that you're doing here is just incredible. This is non-legacy. I think this could be my favorite co-op.
Huh. Okay.
Let me think about that through the review, because I'm trying to think of some other co-ops that I enjoy quite a bit. But this is a nice weight. It's a nice puzzle. There's engine building. There's really dynamic gameplay here. And it's really satisfying. It's really thematic. I mean, all of these cards that you're getting, you got to read the name and you got to look at the picture, because they describe the action, whether you're, washing explorers out of some of the coastal regions. And so it's a big tidal wave or something. Everything is super thematic, which is solid. It's a solid game.
What about the Grizzled?
No, I played this. I mean, 2 different games, obviously. I played this over the Grizzled.
Well, sure, you were asking for co-ops, though, so I'm trying to think of co-ops you might like.
As far as which one do I like more, I like this more, but, I mean, Grizzled's going to take 15 minutes. This is going to take an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the play count.
So for me, Sean, the comparison that came to mind immediately upon playing this was with another greater than game, Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Sure.
Sentinels had an issue with it where there was a little bit too much bookkeeping and worries about, am I getting this rule right? Am I playing this right? Am I tracking everything I absolutely need to be tracking? And it was something where the app obviated the need for a tabletop experience of the game. What I'll say with this is, I don't think this has the exact same problem. But in terms of my fun and enjoyment of the game, it has the same problem in that, for me, there's just a little bit too much going on in terms of how this interacts for me to really dig in and enjoy. Now, obviously, that isn't the case for you, but for me, it feels like something where the powers are really cool, the theme is really cool, it works really well thematically, and yet the tabletop experience doesn't go as cleanly as it could, and possibly I'd enjoy this more on an app. Do you think this would be a better app experience for you, or are you convinced that this as a tabletop experience is solid enough?
I think it would be kind of exhausting to play as an app. And let me say, there is a solo mode where you play just one spirit. I have not done that. I feel like if I were going to play this solo, I would play with 2 spirits, but that just seems like a lot of information to track. There's a lot of processing power that I'm happy to leave to other people until someone says, oh, hey, can someone push this Dahan over here? And I'm like, oh, let me look. Yes, I absolutely can do that. So I don't want to process all that information necessarily on the app. And for me, the maintaining the game state, going through the turn sequence, I didn't find particularly difficult like I might in Sentinels of the Multiverse. Not that it's difficult, but like you said, there's just, you got to put this chit out, and you got to take this chit off, and you got to do all this. So, yeah, I mean, I'd certainly be interested in trying an app version, but I don't think it would be a game killer if it came out in an app form, especially when you consider that there are so many ways to play this game.
Oh, an incredible number. Oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about with value. It's insane.
It's ridiculous in the base game. So first you have your basic spirits, right? You want to play with the basic spirits, great. Then there are some advanced spirits, which now have 2 different innate abilities, and they work in slightly different ways. Okay, add some complexity there. Then you have the base blight mechanic, but you can add cards that change how the blight works slightly, sort of. So there's different ways to play that. Then you can play with a certain adversary, which is a European colonial power that treats the game a little bit differently. And then you can reverse the map tiles to play with this kind of historic board that's like much, much more difficult. I have played the main game, I've added the blight cards, and I've played with the advanced spirits. And I was like, that's fine. Like, that's fine for purposes of the review. This other stuff on top of it is just icing on the cake, as far as I'm concerned. Now, whether it makes for a better or worse play experience, I don't know, but I'm certainly excited to try this. I foresee me playing this some more in the very near future, which is uncustomary after we finish reviewing a game.
How was the play length for you? Because for me, Sean, this thing, at least at 4 players and kind of a little at 3 players as well, overstayed its welcome.
Sure, and I think that's probably true, especially for my first 4-player play, where we were just doing terribly. The second 4-player play was a little bit better, but I will say this, that at a certain point, you need to transition from just trying to keep everything chill, like keep the island from going crazy, to, hey, wait a second, if we just remove these 2 settlements and this one city, that's it. We win the game. So you have to watch for that. I think that sometimes you might be able to reach that point sooner than you realize. There's just this general, I need to keep control over everything on this island. Not, we need to be very specific that we're going to attack these things. This doesn't matter like we think it does for whatever reason. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Okay. I think it makes perfect sense. So, but yeah, and we had a lot of input over on the guild. You want to go over there, check that out, Alex?
Yeah. So first up is from someone who is definitely way in line with me. That's BJ from Board Game Gumbo, who says, I've played Spirit Island, but only one time. I loved the idea of this game. Awesome table presence, unique player powers, interesting theme, cooperative gameplay. However, I was less than thrilled with the implementation. I found the gameplay overly long, almost plodding in its tempo. The multitudes of actions each player can take, the way that the deck is refined and played, and the way that the island inhabitants respond seemed to generate huge piles of AP that only got worse as the game went on, and quite frankly, if I could just summarize my entire review in that, that's where I'm at with this. I mean, that BJ nailed it. It does a lot of cool things. It's awesome table presence, plenty of ways to play, unique player powers, really cool theme. I love that it's a co-op. I love a lot of what this does, and I can tell it's well designed. And for me, it's not fun. It feels overly long. There are too many moments of AP where if there's too much AP in a game, I get kind of self-conscious because I don't like slowing the game down, but I want to do well at it, especially when it's a team game, when you're all working together. And for me, it just doesn't flow as well as I'd like it to. And at the same time, I can acknowledge that for most folks who listen to this podcast and most folks who are on BGG, this is their bread and butter. Absolutely. And yeah, this is a Sean game, and I can only understand why you like this a lot better than I
would say that what BJ expresses there is probably how I felt after my first game, especially at 4 players. So I certainly understand that. BJ, I'd say give it another play, maybe at 3 players. It just depends.
It got a little better for me at 3, but it wasn't different enough for me to really change my thoughts on the game.
So Brian Weiss says, Spirit Island has been a breath of fresh air into the cooperative genre. This is a meaty thematic game that isn't hard to teach and players can really sink their teeth into. The major selling point to me is the spirits. With their wide variety of powers, each game can feel drastically different depending on which spirits are in play. I think one of its strongest elements that I haven't heard discussed too much is the low amount of luck in the game. In Spirit Island, there are no dice whatsoever and just 3 types of cards. Even the Invader deck is only random on the initial draw, and after that, you know exactly where they will be building and ravaging for the next 2 turns. For me, this rates as a strong 5 and easily one of the better games to come out this year. And I just want to talk about the spirits, right? They all play so differently. There's the lightning spirit, which lets their slow actions a lot of times become fast actions and can let the other players' actions that are slow become fast. And the lightning player can do a bunch of damage. The earth elemental spirit offers a lot of protection. There's a mechanic in here called Defend, where if I have like Defend 3, which is kind of a power that the Earth Elemental has in certain areas, then the invaders, 3 of that damage is just ignored, which is pretty useful. So it's just really cool how the game is so drastic depending on what mix of spirits that you have into it. And then when I played with the 2 crazy advanced spirits, oh man, it was a completely different game. Completely different. It was really cool.
Well, and you have things, as you mentioned, like the fire spirit, which thematically makes sense. It's tearing up the land. It does blight to the land and also does a heck of a ton of damage and can spread really well. And so, yeah, you get things like that are great thematic touches. And so I totally get with that. And by the way, I love this idea of you can plan for what's coming. There are some surprises in this game, but for the most part, you will see the train a-coming and have a chance to prepare and deal with it, which I know for a lot of players is absolutely a huge problem with a lot of games like, say, Pandemic, where the deck draw, you could very easily, if the deck comes out in the wrong way, be completely screwed. And this one at least gives you time to prepare for the train that's going to hit you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Scott Sexton said, Spirit Island is going to fall somewhere on my top 10 games of 2017. I'm just not quite sure where. I love the Euro-y, player-driven character growth of the spirits you play. I love the kooky plot and immersive narrative that emerges from the cool power cards you use. I love the considerable variety of the spirits you can play as, but what makes Spirit Island a truly innovative gem is how it fuses dudes on the map style area control onto a fully cooperative styled game design. This has to be one of the early leaders for the most innovative game I've played this year. The game gives you positive feedback loops out the wazoo and gives everybody at the table the feeling that they are an overpowered force of nature hell-bent on cleansing the land. Bravo, Greater Than Games. Bravo. He gives it a solid 5 on the Ducal scale.
Which is really good for folks who don't know. We rate games on a 1 to 6 scale, and yeah, that's a pretty good score.
Sure is.
Sean, innovative. Does that come to mind with this for you?
Yes. I mean, I see what he's saying, and I think I'm in agreement. But I think the hard part is I didn't easily recognize it as innovative, but I think he's right. And so I'm worried that people like me may not also recognize it as being innovative when it comes down to end of the year awards and things like that, like Dice Tower awards for innovation. But I think he's right, because it's not just managing cubes like you would in Pandemic or in Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, things like that. There is a dudes on the map element to this game, and maybe that's why I like it so much. And I can't really think of a full co-op that really does feel like a dudes on the map game as well. So I think he's right.
Well, I get that that's maybe a touch of innovation, but it never struck me as a completely crazy innovative game. I will say it blends a lot of cool things. I mean, it's Sentinels of the Multiverse meets Pandemic on broad strokes. It struck me as really well done, designed well, thematic, enjoyable. I never got the word innovative for my plays of it. I kind of see where he's coming from a little bit, but it just wasn't anything that struck me quite like that.
Fair enough.
Jack Lou says, this is my number 1 game of the year, and I don't see that changing. It's my number 1 co-op of all time now. The biggest issue I have with co-ops were alpha gaming, co-op difficulty, player agency. Spirit Island allows each player to have strong agency over what they do because every spirit and power is unique. You're also building up over time, and you feel yourself getting more powerful. The invaders also get more powerful and build up as well. It's just so satisfying late game when you have powered up enough and can take on globs of white invaders, or when plans play out perfectly. 6 out of 6. There's a reason the second print run is already sold out, and it's not even out yet. They're doing a third printing soon. This game is going the way of terraforming Mars in that regard. And certainly, it has been wildly successful, Sean.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that is something to be aware of right now. That, like he said, that second print run, which isn't even out yet, is already sold out. So definitely, if this is something that sounds interesting, you need to get in on that third print run. So I'm looking, I just did a search on BGG for cooperative games. I have them ranked. So Pandemic Legacy is number 1. It's hard to compare a Legacy game. Gloomhaven, I have it coming, haven't played it. Mage Knight, still haven't played a full game. Arkham Horror, the card game I love. Mechs vs. Minions is good. Eldritch Horror, Dead of Winter, Battlestar Galactica, Pandemic. Yeah, no, this is my favorite co-op game. I might like it more than Pandemic Legacy in terms of just a game-to-game liking, although I love the Legacy style of Pandemic Legacy, obviously. So as far as a one-off game, this is my favorite co-op. Boom, done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big statement.
Yeah. But I'm not a big fan of co-ops.
Co-op isn't a genre you always look to play, Sean.
Exactly.
It's not your... Yeah.
Exactly. So that being said, let's do our Ducal ratings, Alex. So like you mentioned before, we rate on a scale of 1 to 6. A 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun, whereas a 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. And like so many others on the Guild, I'm going to give this a solid 5. A great game. We'll rarely turn down a play of it. Could this get to a 6? I don't think so. I don't see it falling to a 4. I'm excited for some of these other modes of play, but this is certainly a solid 5. This game is excellent. It's going to be in my top 10 games of 2017, and I think it's got a good shot at being in the top 5. So a 5 from me. What about you, Alex?
This is one of those where if you align with Sean's game tastes, you should absolutely play this game. Check it out. Get it to the table. You're going to enjoy it. No question. For me, I can appreciate a lot of what this does. It's thematic. The player powers work well. I can tell it's well designed, and at the end of the day, as I mentioned, I don't have fun with it. It's not to the point where it drops to a 2.
Whew. Oh,
it's
okay.
No. It wasn't, and by the way, that was never a consideration.
Okay.
This is not a I'm never going to play this a game kind of thing. This is a I'm probably never going to suggest this. It's not something I care to have in my collection and don't necessarily need access to. But if it's on the table in the right situation, yeah, I would absolutely play this, Sean.
Okay.
It's well designed enough and plays well enough. I probably wouldn't play it with any more than 3 players. And I'm going to be curious to see if the Apple implementation of this is more fun than the tabletop. I think this is one of those that probably avoids that just because of the spatial nature of the game. That's harder to manage in an app, I would think, than, say, Sentinels of the Multiverse, which does not have that element to it.
Wait, is there an app coming?
I don't know.
Oh,
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm assuming.
I'm like,
assuming.
we got a scoop there. No.
No, it's not a scoop. I have no idea.
Excellent. Good work.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. If you fall in line with Sean's taste, you're going to like this. I appreciate what it does. I know it's thematic. I know it's well designed. I know it's a really well done co-op. And if I don't have fun with it, I don't have fun with it. And at the end of the day, that's where I fall. It's a 3. Game's okay, not exciting. We'll play in the right situation. I would say it's a memorable 3 in that it's a game I won't forget about. It's a game that's going to be in my head, and I think that's a positive sign for it. And it's a game that, by the way, Sean, maybe I get enough plays of it down the road that it ultimately rises to a 4. I think I'll give it the opportunity to go there. It's a 3 with possibilities of getting up to a 4, but right now it's got to settle at a 3. I like a lot of what it does, and at the end of the day, if the package itself doesn't come together for me, I can't rate it much higher than that.
All right, fair enough. That's going to do it for the Duke's review of Spirit Island from Greater Than Games. A 5 from Sean and a 3 from Alex. Not a 2, almost a 2. Whew.
It wasn't almost a 2. I never thought about that. Get off my back.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double-Take.
All right, this week we're doing a Dukes quadruple take.
We're going to be doing these for a while, Alex.
Yeah, I think so. That's fine.
Yeah.
A couple of memorable games. This is episode 110 we're talking about first. It's Potion Explosion from Simon, designed by Stefano Castelli, Andrea Crispi, and Lorenzo Silva. Sean, at the time, you gave this one a 3. You said it was a situational game. If there was an expansion out for this that gave it a little more strategic depth, a little more meat on that bone, you would give it a 4. You thought the chain reactions in this are satisfying, makes sense. You tend to like combos in games. Sean, where are you at with Potion Explosion a year down the line?
I'm going to keep it a 3. There is an expansion, which I haven't played. What's it called? Is it called The Fifth Element? Or is that the movie?
Maybe. That is a movie.
It is a movie, which you have not seen.
I have seen. I've told you I've seen this.
Oh, all right, whatever.
Come on now. I've seen all the movies.
It's a good game. It's not a game that I was crazy about. I certainly get the appeal. It has fantastic table presence. I think it's a great gateway game. I think certainly younger gamers will like it. There's something very satisfying about playing it with all of the chain reactions happening and the clanking of the marbles. It's a better game than I'm giving it credit for, if that makes sense. And I certainly understand its appeal. And I'm just a crusty, heavy gamer. So what can you say?
As much as Spirit Island is more a Sean game than an Alex game, this is more an Alex game than a Sean game.
Oh, definitely.
At the end of the day. At the time, by the way, I gave this a, quote, very high 4, with replayability and variability, holding it back a little bit. It needed a little bit more of that. I thought it was great on a lot of other fronts. And for family gamers, money in the bank. It looks great on the table. It's fun. If anyone has an affinity for, say, Candy Crush, man, this is going to be right up your alley. By the way, the expansion called The Fifth Ingredient, not The Fifth Element.
Ingredient.
So, yeah. Fifth Ingredient. I have not played with the expansion. I'd like to play with the expansion, and I think that's a good sign for the game that I have some intrigue in playing with an expansion for this. I'm going to keep this right where it is. It's a 4. Still a 4. A great game. a good game worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy. I love having access to this thing. I think when it does come out, it looks great on the table. It's one that I have fond thoughts of, and that tends to be a good sign of it. And, by the way, it's a memorable experience, and that tends to be a good thing.
And I'll definitely give it a play with the expansion. I mean, I enjoy it well enough. It's just not a game I'm looking to pull out on any regular basis.
Hey, you said it was a 4 if they had an expansion with more strategic depth.
Right.
So...
Well, I need to play it. So I'm happy to do it.
Fair enough. All right. And next up, we're talking about episode 111, Carmageddon, Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, as Sean titled the episode P-Rock the game.
Yeah.
Designed by Matt Leacock and Chuck Yeager, a Z-Man production. Sean, at the time, you gave this one a 4. Not something you suggest. Replaces Pandemic for you, though.
Yeah.
Strong words. I gave this one a 4 as well. I said it was a very high 4. Does a lot of things really, really well with Pandemic, and kind of does actually replace base Pandemic. Sean, have you played this one since, and what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I did play it one time since. Yeah, one time since. And it's good. It's I was going to say fine. It's not a fine. Fine is typically a 3. I'm keeping it at a 4. A low 4, right? And we talked about, I'm not crazy about co-ops, but a game like Spirit Island really I found to be just amazing as far as co-ops go. This is good. It absolutely replaces base Pandemic for me. I feel like just for me, that game is kind of played out. I've played it so much. This has a cool Cthulhu theme, and I'm a sucker for Cthulhu themes, even though it's, all over the place, but whatever. And it's got cool powers from the Elder Gods. I think it's solid. Again, it's not something I'm going to think to bring out, but I'm very rarely thinking about bringing out a co-op anyway. But if someone were to say, hey, you want to play Pandemic? I'd say, actually, let's play P-Rock. And they'll be like, what's P-Rock? And I'll be like, let me tell you about P-Rock. And then I will tell them about P-Rock, and then we will play P-Rock.
Spreading the good word about P-Rock and trying to get that name to catch on, which it definitely did not.
No. P-Rock! Tell your friends.
So the only time I played this since the review was, I believe, at the tournament that we had at Empire Board Game Library.
Yes.
Sean, was that your only play as well?
Yes, that sure was.
Tournament that I did not do so well in. What I will say, though, is I feel like I need to own this game. I feel like I need to have this in my own personal collection because of what it does with Pandemic, because it does so many good things with that model. It puts a great twist on that, I guess now classic game, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it puts enough of a twist and a thematic twist on it that I really enjoy it. And I'm kind of starting to get more into the Pandemic, there's not Pandemic theme, the Cthulhu theme a little bit more into that world. I feel like I need to read a bit of Lovecraft, which I've never done. Should I read Lovecraft? What should I read, Sean?
Yeah. I mean, I have the collected works of Lovecraft. I've probably read about 80% of it. There's some really trippy stuff in there, but it's not the Lovecraft, the writings are not Fantasy Flight Lovecraft, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
It makes no sense.
So it's less, Lovecraft explores the concept of madness and the unknown. The Fantasy Flight Lovecraft stuff is, here are all these cool monsters, and they do various things. It's good. I like it, and I like the mythos, and it's just different than the source material, even though it's all the stuff from the source material. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's hard to explain.
Okay. Anyway, all that's to say that if I have a desire to own a game like that means it's definitely at a 4.
Sure.
And it's definitely going to stay at that very high 4. It's a game I think pretty highly of. I haven't played it as much as I'd like to, and I haven't thought about it as much as I'd like to, but all that being said, fond enough memories of this one and strong enough associations with it that, yeah, I would play this over base Pandemic just about any day. I like it thematically. I like what it does. And hey, it gave us a timeless Dukes of Dice character. I mean, real person, actual thing that I met.
Oh, absolutely.
And have continued to meet. Yep. That's Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu. Sean gave it a 4. It stays at a 4. I gave it a 4. It stays at a 4. Check that one out if you haven't already.
So, Alex, you're kind of in an interesting position right now. You are in a new place, in a new city. You don't have the regular crowd at Empire. You don't have my place to come play games at. What kind of game table do you have that you could play games on?
Currently in this lovely one-bedroom loft apartment, I have a standard wood kitchen table. So not really much of a playing surface, and not a ton of space for a full-size table necessarily either. When I saw Game Toppers, and I've been seeing them at conventions, both Dice Tower Con and recently at Gen Con, it looked like the perfect thing to have for me. I'm someone who doesn't like a lot of big, bulky stuff, but I like something that provides a nice quality experience, and this definitely fits the bill, Sean.
So these game toppers are really cool, right? Because like you don't have a lot of room, but you can store these toppers and then put them on top of your regular old table in your home. And it's got this cool locking mechanism. It's got some 3M rubber grips on the bottom, so it's not going to slide around. It's going to stay secure on your table. You can even put a pretty decent amount of weight on one end of the table, and it's not going to come flipping up. So I think it's a really cool product. The quality on it is pretty excellent. And you've seen them, Alex, right?
Oh, yeah. I've seen them. I've played on them. I played my first play of The Godfather on one of these. And, for instance, the little card holders built into the lip was absolutely brilliant. Worked perfectly for that game. And I think would work perfectly for a lot of games.
And what's really cool is it's made of both wood and aluminum. So it's this kind of composite material, and it's got the nice wood finish that you come to expect in a high quality gaming accessory, but the aluminum helps keep the weight down. So it's easier to put on the table, to take down from the table, etc. And when this goes up on Kickstarter, you're going to have a lot of different options for different types of playmats, different thematic playmats, whether it's Starfields or for dungeon crawls or whatever. There's a bunch of accessories from Daedalus Productions, from Dogmite Games. Really cool stuff. There's going to be a lot of different packages for a bunch of different budgets. So definitely watch Kickstarter. And if you want to see some videos of what these look like, you can go on over to GameToppersLLC.com.
Game Toppers LLC, upgrading your gaming experience. All right. Finally this week, we are doing a discussion topic that I came up with. And this actually came up as a result of a game night I had over at my good buddy Josh's place, Josh Lobkowitz. And
from Gray Fox Games.
From Gray Fox Games, full disclosure. We were over playing games at his house, and he had a whole bunch of stack of games. He had just had his basement redone. And in that stack, I saw a game that really intrigued me, a game called Soccer Tactics World. Sean, have you ever heard of this game?
Nope.
And I don't think it's a game that you would ever like.
Probably not.
Probably not. So Soccer Tactics World is a soccer game. It's a 2-player, head-to-head, effectively kind of a roll and move with a bigger twist on it than that. It's a roll and move in the way that Blood Bowl is a roll and move, which is to say Blood Bowl's not really a roll and move. Anyway, he described it as the lowest rated game that he loves.
Okay.
And the backstory of it is that Soccer Tactics World, for various reasons, got a whole flood of 1 reviews on BGG. And also tends to be the kind of game that BGG is not necessarily going to be in love with. Sports themes, not always going to be the bread and butter of BGG folks. And you add on top of that it effectively has roll and move at the core of it. It has a lot going for it that isn't necessarily going to make it the darling of the BGG community.
Sure.
That being said, we played a full game of this, and I wanted to play another one right away. We didn't do it because we wanted to get other stuff to the table, but I wanted to play this right away. It was snappy. It was fun. It felt thematic. I had a ton of fun with it. Every time a goal was scored, there was a goal kind of moment to it.
That is something you would do.
It is something I would do, and something we absolutely did do, and something I dug right on the spot and had me go, man, I need to own a copy of this. And he's selling a bunch of his games. This isn't one of them. I need to find a copy of this game. If you have a copy of Soccer Tactics World that you no longer want to have in your collection, send me a geek mail because I would like to get that from you. Please, thank you very much. So that brought up this idea of lowest rated games that you love, posted it on the Guild, and boy, the Guild was enamored with this one, Sean.
Yeah, sure were.
So, Sean, when I brought this one to your attention, what came to mind for you as a lowest rated game that you love?
Interesting. So I think when you brought this to my attention, I think I was without a bunch of sleep because Chewy had kept me up all night in the tent. Because this was Sunday, right? You're like, hey, how about this? I'm like, do it. It's fine. Post it. I don't care.
Yep. Okay. All right.
So, yeah, a couple games came to mind. And I don't know what it says, but there weren't a lot. Because, like, it's games that you love, right, that are not rated particularly highly. And so I found a bunch that I'm like, oh, that's low rated. And I like it well enough, but I don't love it. So I came up with 3. So my first one is... This is going to blow a lot of minds out there, Alex. People are not going to expect this coming from me. Flux. I love Flux. I mean, Flux has been around for 20 years. I've been playing it for at least 18. Maybe it's 25. No, it's 21 because they just had the drinking Flux just came out. Just turned 21. That's right. So I've played Base Flux. I've played Pirate Flux. I've played Star Flux. I've played a bunch of them. And they all, Zombie Flux, right? They all do different stuff. It's a stupid game. There is a little bit of strategy in it. If you have some understanding of basic card economy that you would have learned playing Magic, for example, you can do better in the game, perhaps, than some who aren't using that strategy. But it's not a tried and true strategy because the game is so random. It's called Flux because the game is constantly in a state of flux because the rules are constantly changing. The objective of the game is constantly changing. But I really like Flux. Like, it's something that someone's like, hey, we got 15 minutes. You want to play Flux? I'm like, sure, let's do it. It's rated 5.595 on BGG. This is by Looney Labs, designed by Andrew Looney. It's just so random, and I think that's why people hate it. They just hate how random it is. There are times when you're playing this game where you're just like, cool, I can't do anything. I draw one, play one, and this card actually hurts me. And that can be frustrating. I totally get that. It's just something I love. It's something I played a bunch of. Like, I played a bunch of Munchkin around the same time as I started playing Flux. Munchkin I still hate with a passion. But Flux I'll continue to play. I'll buy a new one every now and then if the theme is interesting to me. I think I own like 3 or 4. So yeah, Flux is one of mine. What do you think?
I'm not a fan of Flux, and it's interesting to hear you describing that as a game you love.
Yeah, I love Flux. It's crazy.
Interesting.
Isn't it weird?
Interesting.
It's weird.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
That's not a Sean game.
No, it's really not. It's weird, Alex. But I love it.
So what's interesting is, as I was thinking about this topic, and I'm sure if I were to actually look through my collection, there would definitely be a lot of games in there that would fit this bill. I haven't looked up what the rating is, for instance, for Rampage or Terror in Meeple City. The one that immediately came to mind was game Heartthrob. And here's the thing. Because of the love Flip the Table gave that, it's a 7.1 on BGG, Sean.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, way higher than I would expect for that game, given that it's a late 80s, early 90s game for ages, all girls who like boys. And that mechanically, it's effectively trying to guess what your friends would like. And yet, I think because of the kind of cult status of that game, it's gotten a significant boost on BGG. So I'm happy to see that, but it kind of doesn't fit the bill for this. So I was at a bit of a loss. I think for a while, Puzzle Strike fit the bill for me as that, but I don't know what the rating is for that on BGG offhand. And
so, question: did you prepare for this,
Sean? Come on, you've been doing this show long enough with me. Do I ever prepare for anything?
Sometimes.
It's pretty rarely. I should say Puzzle Strike 3rd Edition is a 7.4 on BGG. I don't think that qualifies for it either. So I prepared for it in the sense that I posted a thread that got a lot of responses on our Board Game Geek Guild. Is that good enough?
Sure.
Great.
Good job.
Hey, Kyle Kelly says, Animals on Board. I fell in love with this game the first couple of times I played it. To be honest, I was super skeptical, but the way it implements the I split you choose mechanism is brilliant and makes for some interesting strategic choices throughout the game. It was a Spiel recommended title the year it came out. I really think it's deserving of a nomination, but was up against the codenames Karuba and Imhotep of that year. Pretty tough competition. I'm still a little surprised it hasn't even made it into triple digits on BGG. I think in terms of ratings is what he's referring to when he refers to triple digits. Sean, have you played Animals on Board?
Yeah, I think it's a great little family game. I think it's fantastic. I'm surprised that it is not well rated. Actually, I mean,
Let me
maybe
see what the rating is.
Maybe it has something to do with the average gamer on BGG, but I think it's solid. So.
It's not terribly rated. It's rated as a 6.8 at the moment.
Okay.
It's middling at best.
Fair enough.
So I have not tried it. Don't know much about it.
Should I do another one of mine, Alex, since we just jumped into the guild?
I mean, if you feel like it.
So I was surprised to see Chimera rated in the low 6s. Chimera is designed by Ralph H. Anderson, published by Z-Man Games, and this is a 3-player only ladder climbing game.
Wait, Sean. Wait. Hang on.
Yeah.
Do you know what Ralph H. Anderson also helped out with?
With Baseball Highlights
2045, 21st mention. 21st mention?
Wow.
First mention, whatever.
Yes. Okay. Good job.
Carry on.
Anyway, Ralph H. Anderson designed Chimera, a 3-player kind of like Tichu, although Ralph doesn't like it when you say it's kind of like Tichu, but it's kind of like Tichu. Sorry, Ralph. So I love Tichu, and I love Chimera. And in Chimera, you are shedding cards, like a typical shedding or ladder climbing game, where you're playing either pairs or trips from your hand or runs or combining pairs and trips, and people can follow your lead if able, and you're basically just trying to run out of cards first. And then based on what cards you get, there's some bonus scoring. But the cool thing with Chimera is every round, one player is the Chimera, the other two players are the hunters, and they have to team up against the Chimera. So the hunters will kind of score points together, and the Chimera will score points by his or herself. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I don't know why. I mean, Tichu's really popular, and if someone's like, hey, do you want to play a quote-unquote version of Tichu that's only 3 players? I don't know why this wouldn't fit the bill and why it's not doing better. I don't know. I think it's awesome. I love Chimera. Have you played Chimera?
I have, yeah, a couple times.
You
Enjoyable,
like Tichu,
for sure.
You like Tichu, so I would think you like.
And I enjoy Chimera. I think it's if I'm going to play 3-player Tichu, I'm going to play Chimera. Okay. And that may have made Ralph throw his phone or podcast listening device at a wall, but yeah, I mean that's how I feel.
Fair enough.
I like it, and I'm surprised. By the way, that's the geek rating. The actual average rating on there is a little more above a 7. I wouldn't consider that a badly rated game if it's above a 7.
Okay, so what's the difference then between the geek rating and the average rating?
I think the geek rating has to do with the number of ratings combined with the average score. I think. But I'm not a BGG expert.
So which is more telling? I guess that's the question.
The overall the rating, the score, because it has to do with. I think so. First of all, the geek rating, if it's what I assume it is, which I could be dead wrong on, has to do with buzz for a game. A game can be completely overlooked and still be a fantastic game. You know, for instance, an Arcane Academy comes to mind, a game that I think should have gotten a heck of a lot more love. Its geek rating is a 5.984, but its average rating is a 7.
The average rating is the raw average. The geek rating is a modified average.
I think so.
That's what it is. I'm telling you.
Oh, cool. Great. Excellent. Boy, I've done a great job shepherding this discussion topic into success. Hey, Sean, what's another game that you think fits the bill for this?
So, do you remember Trieste, Alex?
I do. It's one of the first 3-player only games I've ever played.
2 3-player only games on my list. That's pretty interesting. So Trieste is from Victory Point Games. It was designed by Matthew Ma. And in this game, one of you, it's a card game. One of you is playing, interesting, these are all card games too. One of you is the City Watch, one of you is the Thieves Guild, and one of you is something else, which I can't remember. But basically, you each have a different objective, and you each have to kind of beat down on the leader because you don't want them to win the game. And it's really cool. I really enjoy this game. And I mean, when it first came out, when I first picked it up, at least, we played it a lot. I mean, this got a ton of plays. But I feel like a lot of the Victory Point games kind of fall under the radar. They've got a lot of fantastic titles. The Trial of Luriel, which is just a fantastic 2-player, kind of shorter card-driven game. And so I just feel like I said, Victory Point kind of flies under the radar sometimes. But this is worth a shot checking out. You just got to wipe the smudge off of stuff. But they give you a little napkin to do that, so it's fine.
I never dug that game.
I know.
And I remember playing it and thinking it was really innovative. And I remember also thinking it had significant balance issues.
We never saw one of the factions win, and everything I read online,
right, or even come that close.
Everything I read online was, they're the hardest, but it's very doable, and they can win consistently or proportionately once everyone kind of knows what's going on. So I'm certainly willing to keep playing it to try and figure that out.
Fair enough. Mike White brings up Cottage Garden. He says it seems to be viewed as the ugly sister when compared to Patchwork and now Barren Park. I much prefer heavier games, but if I'm to play something simpler, I want it to be just that. It needs to be a simple-to-play game that rewards the better player. Cottage Garden does this in 45 minutes, complete with teaching for up to 4 players. It's a real bonus that I can have a genuine completion of this with my 5-year-old using the suggested rule tweaks. There's a lot of people in the hobby that want to get their children into gaming, and it's rare to have a game that can be played competitively with younger children that isn't just random. And yeah, Cottage Garden, I kind of fall in line with, I guess, BGG with this one, in that Barron Park kind of fires it for me. But I also don't have a 5-year-old. Sean, you're going to have a 5-year-old at some point in a couple of years.
That's how that works out. She's going to get older.
Age, yep, it does happen. How's Chewie, by the way?
She's great. Well, actually, I told you she was sick, but she's better now.
Okay,
she's
well, that's good.
And she's terrible. She's good and terrible all at the same time.
Fair enough. Hey, John Knost brings up Matainai. And I'm pulling up Matainai's rating right now. Its average rating is a 7.08. Its geek rating is a 6.6. And what I'll say is, for as great of a game as that is, man, oh man, is that low.
Oh, yeah. No, that's really low, especially if you were to compare it to, say, Glory to Rome, which is similar in play style, although I think we both prefer... Well, have you played Glory to Rome?
I have. Oh, yeah. Several times.
Yeah. I mean, I love Glory to Rome. It's a 6 out of 6 for me, but I think Matainai is better. So its average rating is a 7.5. So yeah, I mean, Matainai is one where it feels like there's a bigger overhead, and I make this comparison all the time. Or not comparison, but this analysis. In Glory to Rome, you are kind of doing things incrementally. You're building these projects incrementally. And that's a little bit easier to wrap your head around. Whereas in Matainai, you are building these works in these big sweeping actions that require a lot of planning. And it's not super intuitive. And there's a high rules overhead. And it's kind of a rough teach. It is. But it's my number 5 game of all time. I love it. But what can you do? What can you do?
And here's the thing is, Josh from work loves it. Grey Fox Games, full disclosure, loves it. Mike Fitzgerald loves it. I love it. You love it. And I tend to find that I think a lot of, for whatever reason, this is sort of like a cult game.
Yeah.
I think it's a game that mainstream is never going to crack it, and maybe even not like mainstream BGG, but the folks who love it. And there's certainly a big fan base for that one. But it's kind of like baseball highlights, probably, where it can be a bit of a niche fan base. I get that. But I think that game deserves better rating-wise than it's gotten.
Yeah. It is given 9 ones on BGG. Much worse than Glory to Rome. Oh my god, I really hate this game. I didn't understand any of it. It is unnecessarily complex and not fun at all. Oh boy.
By the way, Baseball Highlights 2045, not first mention, has an average rating of a 7.7. And a geek rating just shy of a 7. So a little bit better received even than Matainai. Actually, quite a bit better received. Just not a ton of ratings for it, which kind of brings the number down a bit. Anyway, Michael Farnbrook says, the biggest rating disparity in my collection is actually well rated by most who've played it, but it just doesn't have many ratings. High Treason, The Trial of Louis Riel is an awesome game simulating the court case of Canadian traitor/hero Louis Riel. I have it at an 8, aka a Ducal 5, and the average rating for the game is a 7.7, but because it only has 112 ratings, the geek rating is a 5.723. Ooh. If you like clever card play, 2-player games, give this one a try and give it a fair rating, and I'm sure this will start climbing above its current rating, right now sitting at 3,623rd all-time on BGG.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to go. I don't think I've rated it. So I would give it a 5 on the Ducal scale. So I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it an 8 on BGG scale. Boom.
Because of lawyering?
What do you mean? Oh no, it's really good. It's a card. Think of a Twilight Struggle, but in an hour-long game. That it has some lawyer elements.
Steve Paltrineri goes by BGG username Teacher Boy. Says, I have also had a lot of fun with the Oregon Trail card game.
Oh, boy.
4.6 rating, ranked 14,265th all-time on BGG. This is an absolutely terrible game, but I played it twice with people who loved the computer game as kids. I've never laughed that much playing a game before or since, so sure, it's an awful game, but a lot of fun can be had in the right situation. I will say this, Sean, there is definitely a place in my heart for games that are so good, so bad that they're good, so bad that they're funny. We have played in my role at Grey Fox some prototypes that definitely fit the bill. And Star Wars, the VHS game, was kind of almost in the so bad it's good category. Not quite, because it was a slog, but the experience was memorable, no doubt about it.
Fair enough. Well, there are a lot more games mentioned over on that thread in the guild. Definitely go check that out. But we're running a little bit long here, Alex. So let's wrap this episode up.
I've lost all sense of time.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for your contributions on that Alex-inspired discussion topic.
Also, Sean way of saying, this is Sean code, by the way, for, hey, we're going to do better with the discussion topic next time.
No.
I thought it was pretty good, Sean. I thought it was pretty dang good.
It was both fine and interesting. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you crap. I'm giving you crap.
Wow.
Let's move on. We're going long here. 2.5 beer, Alex.
3. It's 3 full,
okay,
to be clear.
So let's talk about the rest of the top 6 as far as naming this episode 160. Brian Weiss suggested Elemental Horrors, which makes perfect sense because we got these elemental spirits in Spirit Island. We've got these horrors in Reign of Cthulhu, and then also the element/ingredients in Potion Explosion. So that makes perfect sense. Good job, Brian.
Matthew S. suggested Presage in a Bottle.
Yes.
I can't sing.
Because
that was the police.
A presage is, a ominous portent, I believe, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds like a thing.
So Jason Lee suggested Island of Misfit Games. Of course, Spirit Island's thrown in there, and these games that we love that the rest of BGG doesn't so much.
Kyle Kelly, bringing the heat, suggested my runner-up for the week, but not Sean's, Losing My Marbles. And it works with Potion Explosion, it works with the insanity in P-Rock, Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, and it works in the fear you inspire on Spirit Island.
Sure does. And then finally, Deep Thoughtful BJ from Board Game Gumbo suggests Ghosts in the Machine, talking about the spirits in Spirit Island as the ghosts, and then also, the machine, I guess, is the computer, the BGG, whatnot. But, this references British philosopher Gilbert Rille's description of René Descartes' mind-body dualism. The phrase was introduced in Rille's book, The Concept of Mind, to highlight the absurdity of dualist systems like Descartes', where mental activity carries on in parallel to physical action, but where their means of interaction are unknown or at best speculative.
I feel like going to sleep.
Well said, BJ. Anyway.
Feel like going to sleep.
That's because of the 3 beers, Alex.
It probably is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the rest of the top 6. Thanks, everyone, again, for helping name the episode. Got a couple bits of end of show business, kind of splitting up that show business a bit. So, Alex, you just had one of your holding court, the Patreon interviews with our good friend and fellow Duke, Suzanne Sheldon, who's now a dice or a die over on the Dice Tower.
Yeah, as I said, the learner has become the master.
Wait, what? She was the learner?
Kind of, not really. I mean, not as far as media goes, but as far as podcasting goes, I don't think she was doing a lot of podcasting.
Sure. Okay. Sorry, Suzanne.
Yeah. No, it was a great episode and a lot of fun.
It was. No, it was a fantastic episode.
And I did another interview with Sarah Erickson over at soon-to-be Bandit Games. To understand that reference, you'll have to listen to the episode. And we have questions up now. You can start asking questions to Josh Lobkowitz, my coworker, who I've mentioned 8 times this episode over at Grey Fox Games. He's our game developer, and I had some real concerns about conflicts of interest with that. And those were assuaged by the guild, who said, it's all good. It's going to be a real interesting interview. We're going to have fun and ask some questions, and he'll answer them.
Very cool. So hey, Alex, do you want to win $100?
I mean, yeah, if it doesn't require me spending $100, that would be a complete waste of time if that was the case.
Okay. Anyway, well, you can't, Alex, because I'm pretty sure there's some conflict of interest here. But if you go over to draftmechanic.net, specifically draftmechanic.net/FBGL, which is short for Fantasy Board Game League, every week you can enter into a contest. The end of 11 weeks, 12 weeks, they're going to do a random drawing, and one lucky winner is going to win a $100 gift certificate to a game store of their choice. So definitely go check that out. But what you're doing by entering is you're actually voting on a bunch of different matchups in this Fantasy Board Game League in which I am participating and in which I am the defending champion, Alex.
And currently undefeated.
Well, so as we record, I'm currently 3-0. As this podcast airs, if all goes well, I should be 4-0, according to the midweek stats that Danielle does every single week, because apparently she has a ton of free time and it's a lot of work, and kudos to Danielle. And this coming week is going to be week 5. So I'm like 3 weeks in the future somehow. This coming week is week 5, which I will be playing against Bill Corey from the Cubist podcast. And he's got a really solid team. So go on over to draftmechanic.net/FBGL. Vote Duke-a-Doodle-Doos. Or Deuce now this year. Last year we were Doos. This year we're Deuce. And help me out and get entered into a contest for $100 along the way. So that's pretty cool. 2 other quick bits of news. Right now, this month, our friends over at Heavy Cardboard are running a Patreon drive. What the heck is a Patreon drive, you ask, Alex?
Is it a drive? I thought it was just something we left up forever.
It is, but unlike doing, say, a Kickstarter campaign, they're kind of doing this push for new patrons, which is kind of an interesting thing. So they're experimenting a little bit with Patreon. It is something you leave up forever, but they're doing a real big push over there. So definitely go check out Heavy Cardboard for some amazing board game heavy board game content in terms of their audio podcasts, some great how to play videos and playthrough videos. And if you're so inclined to support Heavy Cardboard over on Patreon, you could definitely do that. And hey, if you're so inclined to support the Dukes, you could do that as well. So cool. And then finally, Alex, last bit of news, and then we'll end this monstrosity of an episode.
I don't know how this got that long. I am.
Well, you keep interjecting like that, so. So, my good friend, Steve O'Rourke, and
my arch rival and nemesis,
he suggested something. It's called Belongs, parentheses, somewhere else, end parentheses, in the Duchy. Belongs somewhere else in the Duchy, which is a play on words of our rating, belongs in the Duchy. So basically, he is doing this thing where he's giving away a copy of the Stauffer Dynasty. And what you can do is you can go over to our BGG Guild. There is a Belong Somewhere Else in the Duchy thread. And if you would like to just get this game for free, you just have to thumb the main link or the main entry, and he's going to just do a random drawing and someone's going to get it. He's going to pay shipping costs to the continental US, and that's it. That's all that's involved. There'll be a BGG trade that's set up, but you're not giving anything in return. And the idea is that this is going to continue with more and more users just saying, hey, this game's not for me, but let's see who else wants it here in the Duchy. If you want to hear more about Stauffer Dynasty, you can go back all the way to episode 31, where I review it, you're sick, Raquel jumps in to help, and then we did our Dukes Double-Take on it back in episode 83, if you want to hear more about it. But this initial Belong Somewhere Else in the Duchy is going to end on October 11th, which is 2 days after this episode drops. So if you're listening to this right away, head on over there quick if you want to try and win a copy of the Stauffer Dynasty. So thanks to Steve for coming up with this awesome interaction in the guild where guild members are just kind of helping each other out, so to speak.
Community focused.
Yeah.
And makes total sense. And I probably should find something to put up on there as well.
I will be doing that.
You should as well, Sean, because you have a ton of games.
I just said I will be doing that as well.
What are you going to do it with, Sean?
I don't know. I'll have to take a look here.
Is it going to be Zolkin?
What? No.
Is it going to be Terra Mystica?
Hey, that's going to do it for episode 160. I'll drink to that. Thanks again to Neil Hoffman for naming that episode. Sorry for letting this episode go long. When Alex has a couple beers in him, there's just not much I can do, folks. Not much I can do.
I take no responsibility.
So until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on October 5th, 2017. Our theme music is provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to a whole bunch of sponsors, including Arcane Wonders and Tasty Minstrel Games. You can check out all their awesome titles at arcanewonders.com and playtmg.com. And Game Toppers LLC. You can find them on Kickstarter right now or at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!